May the souls of the departed rest in peace. Iwájú tí wọ́n kọjú sí Olódùmarè kò dáa, ẹ̀yìn wọn má bàjẹ́, ẹrú èèyàn méjì tó di tẹnìkan àbí ẹrú ẹnìkan tí ó wá di wàhálà fún àwọn tó fi sẹ́yìn. Olódùmarè jọ kó bá dúró tì wọ́n, kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀, kó ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Kí la wá torí kóra wa jọ lónìí o? Àní ìfọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀ fún òmìnira Yorùbá, collaboration for Yoruba freedom. That's the theme we have been following since the 3rd of January. And why? Because we all believe all isn't well and there needs to be a change. Whether Yoruba remain in or out of Nigeria, we all believe it's got to be all change and not business as usual. So I have 3 very good speakers today, shall I say, speakers of honor, who are going to speak to particular area of our discussion. We have 3 key areas to look at. We have got petitions. Many of us are aware lots of petitions are going on. Ìbẹ̀lọ́wẹ̀ kí ọ̀rọ̀ wa lè yanjú. With that, we are going to look at where the petitions will be going to. We also have another speaker who is going to be focusing on Yoruba referendum, as well as the draft constitution, once upon a time, 2002, in existence as we speak. And finally, I have someone who will focus on the legality surrounding the various aspects of actions being taken to facilitate what seems to be a widely desired position to have, some say autonomy, some say freedom, some say emancipation. Let me go straight on to the program by noting that all will be clear by the end of this program. We will finish sharp at 5:30 UK time, as I particularly need to vacate for something else, not more important, but equally important. So I want us to understand that a minute will not be spent beyond 5:30 UK time, and that's 6:30 Nigeria. So let me go straight on to our speakers for today. Let me just name the 3 of them. The one favorite title I have, Bashegun Alabe of Ijebu-Ijesha. The first day I heard that title, I was wondering, but it turns out to be that we are talking about an orthopedic surgeon who does what most of us, I don't imagine, will even want to get involved with. Let me go straight on to him and invite him to introduce himself fully, to tell us why he's with us today, and to address the main topic of petitions for Yoruba freedom for 20 minutes after he has introduced himself. Over to you, Bashegun Alabe of Ijebu-Ijesha.
Thank you very much, Erelu. The first thing to do is to thank you for inviting me. I also need to thank my friend Debo Lunge, who was the one who actually introduced me to this group. I usually don't like people who talk about their CV before they give a talk, because what that generally means is that people, once you, mention your string of titles and your string of degrees, people think that you are talking some sense. I will just briefly mention one or two things about myself. I was at Ibadan between 1967 and 1973 when I graduated. And I left Nigeria in 1974 for the UK, where I trained and where I've remained ever since. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I was once a member of the General Medical Council. I have qualifications in law as well, which allowed me to sit in different tribunals in the UK. I have the title of Basigwala Bay of Ijebu-Jesha, which I'm exceedingly proud of. I remember when I wanted to, when I accepted that chieftaincy title, my friends were telling me they only want your money. And I said, I don't care. It serves an emotional thing for me. And it is the same as coming here to talk to you. It's also an emotional thing, if you understand me. Now, I have a confession to make. I am not an expert on petitions. I've only written one, but I will make some commonsensical observations, which is, I think, all that we require. And I'm hoping that by the time that I've explained why I came to write the petition and the philosophy behind my writing, that I may be able to help those who may in the future want to write petitions. I think I need to start by clarifying that I might be talking about other people's petitions, but the idea is not to criticize, it's really to just look at where I think I differ from them, if you see what I mean. This is not a matter of criticizing anyone, but simply say, this is the idea that they have, this is the idea that I have. And then to say, well, perhaps this is why they failed, and this is why my petition might succeed. Finally, as part of introduction, I have to say that I don't belong to any political parties. I don't actually know who they are in Nigeria anyway, because I live in the UK. And also, I don't belong to any groups. So whatever I'm saying today, it's coming from me. It is not coming from anybody else. So if you are going to blame anyone, then please blame me. I think I'll start by giving a simple definition of what a petition is, which is really a request for something to be done. It is usually a formally written request. It is typically signed by many people. And what you're doing, you are appealing to an authority. You are requesting from an authority to do something in particular. When I was doing the research before I wrote my petition, I came across one thing that was most interesting, was Awolowo's petition to Ironsi. This was dated 28 March 1966. In fact, I didn't know that existed. And any Yoruba person, I think, should read that petition, because it's really very illuminating, the kind of person that Awolowo was. I mean, I was fortunate to have met him, I think, about 1961 or thereabout. Now, what I learned from Awolowo's petition, although I don't know whether Irunsi actually responded to it, but I know he didn't free Awolowo. It was Gawan that freed Awolowo. So I don't know what happened. What I learned from Awolowo's petition was that when you are writing a petition, you have to have a title which has to be biting. You have to have a reason for that petition, again, which is pretty clear-cut. And you also have to explain what are the advantages of doing what it is that you're asking to be done. During my research, I found that the first petition was actually written by slaves who were doing the pyramid. They asked for their conditions of service to be improved. The freedom of Mandela owed itself to the moral pressure that was applied by various petitions all over the world. Today, Amnesty International, as an example of an organization, relies on petitions to support various causes. Now, online petition is now very, very common. And my understanding is that the organization through which I have put my petition, they're called change.org, which was founded in 2007, is the world's most popular platform with over 50 million users. Now, there are different bodies where you can send your petition, but there are two that are important, and I'm going to mention those two now before I go on. The first one is the UK. You can actually create a petition at the UK government and parliament site. You only need 5 people to support that petition, and they will publish it. You need 5 signatures. You tell them, they publish it. If you get 10,000 signatures, the government will respond. If you get 100,000, it is likely that you are going to get a parliamentary debate. You might get invitation to come and talk to MPs and so on and so forth. The other body, which is important for what we are discussing, is the UN. And there you have the most complicated system you can think of. And it's not surprising because this is a group of states and the group of politicians, and they've made things as complicated as possible. The only current nationhood petition that I could find is the one of West Papua Guinea. They were asking for independence from Indonesia. There's also something that is called Chapter 11, which deals with non-self-governing territories, of which the Western Sahara is the only one in Africa. Western Sahara is having some problems with Morocco. And then there's a special committee on decolonization, which we don't fall, Nigeria doesn't fall into that. When I was looking at the UN petition rules, I then asked myself, what are the causes of the failures of UN petitions? The first one that I noticed is that there's if there's no media interest, you're not getting anywhere. The second thing was that because states are required to respond, if states don't respond, you don't get anywhere. And only 20% of states ever respond. Then the UN itself does not have any mechanism by which you can follow up your petition. It just seems to disappear into ether. And then the system itself, there's a lack of what I call lack of professionalism. So if I now come to what I really want to talk about today is, why did I write a petition? Exactly what was the reason for it? Now, in early October, I think Erelu was mentioning something similar. I saw videos of gruesome live beheadings of 2 women. It was done by Northern soldiers. I mean, these were women that, I don't know, because they didn't like the way they were dressed, they were tied up, and somebody then used a cutlass to cut off the head. I mean, this was horrible. It was barbaric, inhuman. This is not the sort of thing that you expect in a modern country. And in fact, at that stage, I said, I will never set foot on northern Nigeria again, because I couldn't believe that human beings could behave this way. A week or two later on, I was watching the NSAS Lekki demonstration unfold on TV when soldiers just appeared from nowhere, not talking to anybody. They just started firing their guns. Immediately, that took me back to 1st February 1971, which was the first time, I think, that policemen opened fire on protesting students. We were protesting, and they fired at us, and they killed a friend of mine, Kunle Adepeju. That was 1st of February 1971. And I've always said since then that because our parents did not respond to that very well, that's why Nigeria began to degenerate. So my first reaction when I saw the Lekki massacre was asking myself, how can we as Yorubas live in the same country as these barbaric, uncivilized, cold-blooded killers? I mean, people who kill human beings like they kill animals. I was asking myself, I mean, how can we live with them? Then my next reaction was to say, I've got to do something. I must do something. And then I asked myself, what? What can you do? I don't belong to any political party. I'm not part of any organization. It was then I decided, well, okay, I'm going to write a petition to say that we Yoruba can no longer be classed as Nigerians, that we could not stay in the same country as these uncouth, barbaric people who inhabit the 18th century or the 17th century. After I'd written, I think my brother is actually on the Zoom, so he'll understand this. After I'd written it, and I then published it on change.org, and I was telling my daughter, and she said, well, how are you going to publicize it? Just simply putting it on somebody's website is meaningless. You got to find a way of publicizing it. That was when she introduced me to Twitter. I'd never done anything with Twitter before. So she then introduced me to Twitter and said, look, you go onto Twitter, and then she showed me a few things to do. So far, I've written over 5,000 tweets since October last year in support of my petition. And the idea was I was trying to convince people to look at the same anger that I feel. And one of the things you notice as soon as you get involved in this sort of thing is that people will start telling you, oh, why bother? It's not going to change anything. You obviously have nothing better to do. In fact, when I first wrote the petition, I tried to get newspapers in this country, in the UK, involved, but they weren't interested. So the question is this. The next question for me was this. What is the philosophy behind my petition? Why? Why did I want to write a petition? What was it that was going on in my mind which got me to say, this is how I'm going to write it? So the first thing I said to relay was that every Nigerian knows that the country is a failure. There's no Nigerian other than politicians who are making money out of Nigeria that will say Nigeria is not a failure. Every single one of us feel that Nigeria is a failure. We know that Nigeria is going backwards economically. There are more people who are poor in Nigeria than any other country on earth. To find that statistic is absolutely shocking to me. And then all that we extract, we just simply hand it over to all these bloated, clueless politicians. So you take the money out of the soil and you just hand it over to them. And in recent times, the only growth industry in Nigeria is terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping. Buhari's government doesn't seem to be in charge of anything. The police and the army are out of control. Cattle herders trespass and engage in deadly clashes with farmers. The Lekki massacre confirmed to me, and I think to most Nigerians, that actually we are all excluded from decision making. There's no real court access for anyone. You couldn't say you're going to court for recompense. That's the problem. And what are the reaction that I've noticed from politicians and so on and so forth is this thing called restructuring. And then I ask myself, this nostalgia for the good old days, this idea of restructuring, well, actually, everybody has forgotten that the political arrangement of that time had collapsed. That's why we had the coup. It wasn't because everything was going on Kidori that we had the coup. It was because that system of governance had collapsed. And then I asked the question, why did it collapse? And it collapsed because the Fulani had set out right from the beginning to rule Nigeria forever. And I'm going to quote to you what Ahmadu Bello said 11 days after independence. He said this: the new nation called Nigeria should be an estate of our grandfather, Osman Danfodio. We must ruthlessly prevent a change of power. We must use the minorities in the north as willing tools and south as conquered territories and never allow their future. That's what Ahmadu Bello said. And there's a television interview which he did shortly after independence, when he was asked that there aren't enough people in the north to man whatever it is they require. And he said that they will employ foreign. And so they were asking him, will you get other Nigerians to come? He said, no, they were going to employ foreigners on contract. And it is only if they cannot find foreigners that they will employ Nigerians on contract. So right at the beginning, the North, the Fulanis had decided that Nigeria was never going to work unless it belonged to them. Now, the intriguing thing, and as I said right at the beginning, I am not interested in blaming anyone or any group of Nigerians or any tribe. Awolowo sought alliance with the NCNC. About 1961, he sought alliance with the NCNC so that they could, AG and NCNC of the time, could then take over the government of Nigeria. And this is what led to his imprisonment, and eventually what led to the January 1966 coup. A lot of people don't connect the two, but in fact, the people who organized the coup were, if you like, I would call intellectual soulmates of Awolowo. They knew what Awolowo was doing. So Nzego and Vejama had the same concept of what Awolowo was doing. And in fact, it's surprising that when they did the coup, they didn't free him straight away. This is what Awolowo said.
I'm going to invite you to, because I'm going to give you just about 7 more minutes, so please focus on the petition.
Well, this is what I'm trying to do.
Contents of your petition. Thank you.
Yeah. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm sorry, I didn't know that I'm speaking for too long.
No, well, it's on a timer. That's why.
The conclusion that I drew from that is this: that Nigeria is peculiarly unsuited for the two democratic systems of government most commonly practiced in the world. We've tried parliamentary, it's failed. We've tried presidential, it's failed. There is no system of government that is going to work. That's my first conclusion. I was talking about my brother just now. He was the one who drew my attention to the fact that there are so many petitions out there. And he quite rightly asked the question, how do you think yours is going to succeed? Because, for example, the various Biafra organizations have launched independent petitions all over the place, in the UK, the EU, everywhere. And in fact, the British Home Office published something. There's an Home Office publication in April 2020 about the Biafra complaints. And it's very instructive to read that publication, because what you gather from it is that Biafra complaints are based on current and historic victimization. And what they were saying is that Biafra is not as badly off as they claim, because they lost the civil war, and yet the country was magnanimous enough to take them back. And in any case, Igbos are members of the same government. And the conclusion that I made, I'm now paraphrasing everything now because I'm now rushing. The conclusion that I made from that was that any petition that was based on victimization and ill treatment is not likely to succeed with any Western government or in any international organizations. And the reason is simple. These people are used to ill-treating others. So you're asking Americans, you're asking the British, oh, I'm badly treated, help me. They're used to it. I mean, these people have been sitting on Palestine for how long? You know? So in fact, writing a petition and saying, oh, well, I'm ill-treated, is not going to work. The only emotion that these people know is nationalism. That's it. If you can put your case on the basis of sovereignty or nationality, then you succeed. And that is the basis of my petition, which I just put it on here. The basis of my petition is exactly what I'm just describing. I'm trying to put it on. And the first part of my petition was this, that since the 19th century, the Yoruba have found themselves forced into political and economic union with peoples with whom they have absolutely nothing in common. I then go on to say how we've been kept in this union that we never wanted, and then ended by saying, after more than 100 years of being forced to be part of the country Nigeria, as outlined above, it is now the wish of the Yoruba people to right the wrong that have been perpetrated on them and to establish their own country, the Oduduwa Republic. That basically is what my petition is all about. It's all about sovereignty, just like Brexit. If you look at it, the British weren't suffering as such in Europe. The reason why they left is because of nationalism, is because of sovereignty. And for me, that was the essence of my petition. That is, we are not against anybody. We don't want to fight anybody. We just want to go on our own. Our forefathers did not sign up to be Nigerians. They didn't have anything to do with Nigeria. They existed on their own, and we can exist on our own. We have our own culture, we have our own laws, we have our own medicine, we have our own everything, and that we could exist on our own. Now, I had been hoping, my strategy really was to get 100,000 signatures by the end of this month. But in event, I've only got 700. The plan was, if I could get that kind of signatures, I was going to take it to New York myself personally. I'd already drafted if you like, a declaration, a letter to the UN. Unfortunately, there's not going to be enough time for me to be able to read it. And I was then going to petition the British government to ask them to sponsor the Oduduwa Republic at the Security Council. Not just me going to New York and saying, this is what we want. I was also going to petition the British government to say, look, you are the cause of all this wahala. You need to help us to solve it. And the one way to solve it is to go to the Security Council and say, these people are entitled, that the Yoruba are entitled to their own independence. Now, the last bit of it that I have is what I had written, which I was going to present to the UN. I'm just going to read the first paragraph and the last paragraph. In the first paragraph, I said, this petition is grounded entirely on Yoruba nationalism and the desire of the Yoruba to form their own Oduduwa Republic. Creation of the Oduduwa Republic will right the wrong that the Yoruba suffered when the British in 1914 forced them into amalgamation with other ethnic groups to form Nigeria. I then described what the Yorubas are, where we are, that we've been in the same location from time immemorial. It isn't as if we arrived there. We've always been there. We've always had the same tradition. I then go on down the page to talk about the fact that the proposed Oduduwa Republic meets the standard set at the Montevideo Conference in 1933, where they said, if you want to be a country, you must have a permanent population, a defined territory, a government, and the ability to form relations with other states. And in terms of government, we've done it before. We did it in the Western region. So we Yoruba ran Western region. We could do it again in a completely different country. The proposed Oduduwa Republic also meets the 5 standards set by President Bush in 1991 for recognition of the Soviet republics. 1, self-determination consistent with democratic principles, which we were quite happy with. Recognition of existing borders, we have no problem with that. Support of democracy and rule of law, we have no problem with that. Preservation of human rights, we have no problem with that. And respect for international law and obligations. And I then go on to say, the Yoruba have a tradition of democracy. In fact, the democratic system in Yoruba land is not paralleled by anywhere in the world where you have the system of Oba, where the Oba is not like, it's not hereditary. You don't just become an Oba because your father was an Oba. That's a system. It's a rotational system, where it goes from ruling houses to ruling houses. You can't have any more grassroots democracy than that. We could. Part of the things that I'm saying is that because we have that tradition, we could go on our own. And then I said, I'm about to finish. If you just give me 2 minutes to finish. Then I go on to say about this, that in Africa, we only have 55 countries. That's all we have. With a landmass in which you can, in Africa, you can put the USA, China, India, Europe, and Japan. You can stick them all and they will fit in Africa. And we only have 55 countries. There's no reason why we cannot have more countries than 55. I mean, take an example of Luxembourg. Luxembourg is a member of the UN, and it only has 700,000 people. We have 30 million. So we can exist on our own. And finally, as I point out here, is that it is no accident that the most successful nations on this planet are monoethnic. You look around you, Europe, the most successful nations, they're monoethnic. And part of the reason why Africa does not succeed is because we have towers of Babel all over the place. Because a lot of energy is being expended on keeping the country together because of the disparity of ethnic groups, so that they don't have enough energy to do anything else. I then finally ended like this. Our forefathers were not Nigerians, and they did not sign up to be Nigerians. We just want to follow in their footsteps and reestablish a sovereignty. That is our right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you just joined me, you can see you've joined at the right time. You have arrived at the gathering of Yoruba freedom fighters. I will add strategic freedom fighters. I am Erilu Tunwashe, and we've just had the most cherished privilege of listening to Chief Dr. Shola Owuni, consultant orthopedic surgeon, UK-based, Bashegun Alabe of Ijebu-Ijesha, author of a number of books, including one on ancient Yoruba medicine and law, who has kindly provided us adequate insight into why he, as a responsible, concerned citizen, decided to commence on writing a petition, which is out there for many of us to put our signature to. Thank you very much indeed. Let me go straight on to my second speaker. And why am I doing this? Because the topic for today is referendum, petitions, constitutional force majeure, multi-regional alliance, draft constitution 2002 of the Yoruba people. And we are going to be having a strategic appraisal. Ẹ káàbọ̀ sórí ètò náà, mo rò pé òyìnbó yẹn pọ̀. Kí la torí ẹ̀ jókòó jàre, ìfọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀, fún ìtẹ̀síwájú aláàfin òmìnira abẹ́ gbogbo àlàyé tán ṣe àbá wọn ṣe mọ́ kàn máa gbé tiwọn lọ. Ẹ jẹ́ ká tẹ̀síwájú. Tẹ́ ẹ bá ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ darapọ̀ mọ́ mi nínú n tá a pè ní agodo Zoom yìí, ẹ fún mi ní ìṣẹ́jú kan, dàbí ẹni pé màá fi àwọn bá a ṣègùn sí ìdákẹ́rọ́rọ́ ká lè ráyè tẹ̀síwájú. Inú agodo tá a wà yìí, èmi kì í ké èrò púpọ̀ síbẹ̀, ṣùgbọ́n mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín tẹ́ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa tá a wà níta. Mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín púpọ̀ fún ìdarapọ̀ tẹ́ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa láti gbogbo àgbáyé. Kí là ń torí ẹ̀ jókòó? Kò bá wù wá ká máa dúkìrí, mi ní kò dá ká máa dúkìrí inú gbó. Kò bá wù wá ká máa pariwo lórí social media. Kò bá wù wá ká máa ìtàn máa ń ṣe é sí wọ́n máa ṣépè. Ìyẹn kọ́ lọ́rọ̀. Ẹni tó bá mọ ìbọn yìn, òun là ń fún ní ẹ̀bù tó máa yìn. So let me go straight on to my second speaker. I call him affectionately Alàgbà Fẹ́mi Ọ̀dẹ́dèyí. A very warm welcome to you. I'm going to invite you to address us, focusing on the key areas: the draft Constitution 2002 of Yoruba people, of course, Yoruba referendum, and also I'd like you to introduce yourself. Ẹni oníkànlá ni ó bá wa sọ. Ó yá, ẹ bá wa tẹ̀síwájú. I will give you 20 minutes, please, but if you feel you need a little bit more, I will be flexible. So over to you, Alàgbà Fẹ́mi Ọ̀dẹ́dèyí.
Ẹ ṣé púpọ̀ mà. Ẹ káàsán, ẹ kúrọ̀lẹ́ ní ibi tí a bá wà.
Ẹ káàsán o.
Ẹ káàsán mà. Ṣé ń gbọ́ mi báyìí mà?
À ń gbọ́ yín dáadáa, mo mọ̀ pé United States of America lẹ wà. Ẹ káàsán o.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, ẹ káàsán, ẹ káàsán, ẹ káàárọ̀, ẹ kúrọ̀lẹ́ ibi tí gbogbo wa bá wà. Inú mi dẹ̀ dùn, mo dẹ̀ dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run pé irú ìpàdé báyìí wá sáyé. Inú mi tún dùn. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ tí n bá ń sọ̀rọ̀ mo lè máa fòyìnbó kún, but màá fẹ́ kí ó sọ Yorùbá, àmì màá fẹ́ máa sọ Yorùbá dáadáa nínú ẹ̀. Fún àwọn ẹ̀gbọ́n wa, alàgbà wa bá a ṣègùn tí wọ́n sọ̀rọ̀ tán, fún nǹkan tí màá pè ní candor. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ mi mọ Yorùbá candor yẹn. Fún candor wọn ní bí wọ́n ṣe sọ̀rọ̀. Ó dẹ̀ fi hàn wá wípé oríṣiríṣi ọ̀nà ni ọ̀rọ̀ tó ń jẹ wá lógún fi máa tọ́ jáde. Olúkálùkù wa ló dẹ̀ ní ìpín tá a máa kó nínú ẹ̀. Nípa ìfaraẹnihàn tèmi o, ọmọ Yorùbá ni mí. Ẹnìkan wà nígbà tí wọ́n ń jà fún òmìnira Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau yẹn ó wà ní West Africa. Ní Amilcar Cabral lórúkọ ẹ̀. Ó lọ sí Italy. Àwọn òyìnbó yẹn wọ́n ń support wọn gbà yẹn. So ó lọ sọ ọ̀rọ̀ kan ní Italy. Wọ́n wá bi léèrè pé ta ni o jẹ́, irú èèyàn wo ni ẹ́? Ìdáhùn tó fún wọn gbà yẹn, ńgbà táwa wá dàgbà táwa kà, ó jẹ wá lógún gan. So ìyẹn ni a fi máa ń ṣe àpèjúwe ara wa wípé ó sọ lóyìnbó ńgbà yẹn, ó ní I am a simple African doing my duty within the context of my own time. Tí n bá ní kí n sáré túmọ̀ sí Yorùbá pé ọmọ ilẹ̀ aláwọ̀ adánláwọ̀ kì í ṣe adúláwọ̀, ọmọ ilẹ̀ adánláwọ̀ ni òun dẹ̀ ń ṣe ẹ̀tọ́ òun ní àsìkò tó tọ́ àti àsìkò tó yẹ. So irú àwa báyìí táwa gbọ́njúmọ̀ tí gbogbo wọn ṣe àti gbogbo wọn bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ń kú máa wó lọ́wọ́ gbogbo wọn. Àwa náà lè sọ pé ọmọ ilẹ̀ adánláwọ̀ ni wá. A dẹ̀ fẹ́ ṣe ẹ̀tọ́ wa bó ṣe yẹ ká ṣe nígbà tó yẹ àti bó ṣe yẹ ká ṣe. Nǹkan tó mú wa dédi ọ̀rọ̀ draft Yoruba constitution àti referendum nìyẹn. But kí n tó sọ̀rọ̀ lórí ìyẹn màá sáré padà sẹ́yìn. Tẹ́ bá rántí àmì bí mo ṣe sọ ní ìsìn a ní ọmọ adánláwọ̀ ni wá. Ó ní nǹkan kan tó sọ wá di bá a ṣe dà lénìí. Bó jẹ́ Nàìjíríà la pè o, bó jẹ́ Ghana la pè o, wherever tá bá pè láfíríkà, ó ní nǹkan kan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ tá a fi di bẹ́ẹ̀. Kó tó di pé kinní yẹn ṣẹlẹ̀, olúkálùkù wa ló ní bá a ṣe ń ṣe ìjọba ara wa, bá a dẹ̀ ṣe ń bára wa ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ ajé ni o, ọ̀rọ̀ ìgbà àwo ni àti gbogbo orú nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn, tí kìí ṣe pé àdádúró tá a mọ̀ra wa rí. Àwọn Yorùbá ti ń bá wọn Tápà, àwọn Núpè, gbogbo wọn a ti ń bára wa ṣe oríṣiríṣi nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn. Àwọn èèyàn ti ń lọ sí Mẹ́kà láti ilẹ̀ Yorùbá tó ń gba Sudan kọjá, tó jẹ́ pé ìgbà tó ń padà bọ̀ wọ́n dúró, wọn padà wá sí Nàìjíríà mọ́, wọ́n dúró sí Sudan. So gbogbo orú nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ti ń lọ. Ṣùgbọ́n ìgbà tí ó di pé àwọn aláwọ̀ funfun àbí àwọn tá a máa ń pè ní òyìnbó nílùú tiwọn gan, ní agbègbè tiwọn ní Europe yẹn, under Roman Empire ni wọ́n wà nígbà yẹn. Nígbà táwa ṣe ń lọ tá à ń bọ̀, tá à ń lọ tá à ń bọ̀, a rántí gbogbo la máa rántí story Mansa Musa tán ni ó lọ sí Mẹ́kà tó kó oríṣiríṣi góòlù, oríṣiríṣi gbogbo ẹ̀ lọ sí. Ní Mali Empire tó wà nígbà yẹn ní 1215, that's 13th century, wọ́n ní kinní kan tó ń pè ní Mandé Charter. Mandé Charter yẹn tẹ́ bá compare pẹ̀lú American Bill of Rights, hardly lẹ fi máa rí yàtọ̀ ńbẹ̀. American Bill of Rights tó jáde ní 1780 something, àwọn Mandé Charter ti nílẹ̀. Àwọn British tán láwọn ṣe constitutional monarchy, òun la ti ń lò ní Ọ̀yọ́ Empire, tó jẹ́ pé tí wọ́n ní Aláàfin lórí, wọ́n wá ní àwọn Ọ̀yọ́mèsì. Àwọn Ọ̀yọ́mèsì ní bíi parliament nígbà yẹn ní gbogbo irú nǹkan tó ń ṣe. So wọn ò mú nǹkan kan tó tuntun wá sí ọ̀dọ̀ wa ní bá a ṣe ń ṣe kinní yẹn. So bí mo ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ wípé bí gbogbo ẹ̀ ṣe wá rí, ìgbà tí ní Roman Empire yẹn, ìgbà tó lọ tó bọ̀ ṣá, àwọn tó gbàjọba àti tán láwọn jẹ́ ìgbàgbọ́, tán láwọn jẹ́ kinní kan, olúkálùkù wọn wá ń ṣe tiẹ̀. Ohun tó fà á tí mo kàn ń ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀ lérèfé ni o. Ọ̀gbẹ́ni kan wà nígbà yẹn tó ń pè ní Martin Luther, German ni Martin Luther yẹn. Òun ló translate, ìgbà yẹn wọ́n ń kọ ìwé Bíbélì àwọn Christian ní èdè Greek. Ìgbà tó máa translate ẹ̀, bí Àjàyí Crowther ṣe ṣe, ìgbà tó máa translate Greek yẹn, kò translate ẹ̀ sí èdè Roman àbí Latin, ó translate ẹ̀ sí èdè tiẹ̀, Germany. Nǹkan tó fà á tí Germany ṣe di orílẹ̀-èdè lénìí nìyẹn, ó wà lára nǹkan tó fà á. So olúkálùkù wọn gba tiwọn lọ, wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí bára wọn jà, wọ́n ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀. Wọ́n jà 30 years war kan láti 1618 dé 1648. Ìgbà tó di 1648 yẹn, wọ́n wá ṣèpàdé kan níbi tó ń pè ní Westphalia. Wọ́n wá create system of government tí ò sí tẹ́lẹ̀. Wọ́n create system of government tí ò sí tẹ́lẹ̀ nígbà yẹn. N tó ń pè ní nation state, that is orílẹ̀-èdè. So ibi tí orílẹ̀-èdè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì, orílẹ̀-èdè Faransé, orílẹ̀-èdè Germany, orílẹ̀-èdè gbogbo wọn ibi tán ti wá nìyẹn. Ìgbà tó wá di pé olúkálùkù wọn ìjà ló sọ wọ́n di tán ṣe di orílẹ̀-èdè. Olúkálùkù wọn dẹ̀ tún wá fọ́n káàkiri, olúkálùkù ń wá bó ṣe máa tún jẹgàba, wọ́n ṣáà ń bára wọn jà, competition láàrin ara wọn. Ohun tó fà á tán fi ń lọ káàkiri àgbáyé nìyẹn. Tá a bá wò tán dáadáa, à á rí i pé nígbà tí wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí kó àwọn èèyàn lẹ́rú ní Áfíríkà, ilẹ̀ ẹrú ò dé ilẹ̀ Yorùbá until ìgbà tí kinní yẹn ti fẹ́ parí tán. Ohun tó wá ṣẹlẹ̀ ní pé ìgbà tó fẹ́ parí tán yẹn, àwọn Yorùbá tán wá kó lẹ́rú wá pọ̀ ju gbogbo àwọn tán ti ń kó lẹ́rú tẹ́lẹ̀ lọ ní gbogbo Áfíríkà. So ìgbà tó di nígbà tí ìyẹn tó dẹ̀ fà yẹn ni pé
ó máa bẹ̀yìn pé kẹ́ ẹ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí go on to torí bí ṣe jókòó mo ń wò pé are you teaching me colonial history? I'm not interested. Please illustrate ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá. Mo bẹ̀yìn ni.
Náà ni ohun tó lead ohun tó fà á ni mo sọ
mo bẹ̀yìn ni mo bẹ̀yìn ni ìfẹ́ mọ́ tó fà á.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni màá ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ mà.
Ìgbà tí ẹ fẹ́ máa sọ ọ̀rọ̀ lu onílùú mi ni.
Nígbà tí Ọ̀yọ́
ẹ má bínú sí mi ẹ jọ̀ọ́.
Tí Ọ̀yọ́ empire wá collapse yẹn ohun tó fa gbogbo kinní yẹn nìyẹn. So nǹkan tó wá fà á nìyẹn tí àwa fi ń sọ wípé lẹ́yìn gbogbo wípé wọ́n ṣe amalgamation o wọ́n ṣe amalgamation o nǹkan tó wà ń díẹ̀ ni pé wọ́n ti colonialism àti gbogbo ẹ̀ ó ti bá a ṣe jẹ́ àṣeyàn lọ. Àwa ìgbà tí gbogbo kinní yẹn wá ń ṣẹlẹ̀ gbogbo wa la dẹ̀ mọ ìtàn bọ́n ṣe lọ sí London báwọn Awólọ́wọ̀ ṣe lọ sí London tán ṣe constitutional conference tán ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀ tán wá gbéjọba kalẹ̀ ní gbogbo ìtàn Nàìjíríà àwọn Awólọ́wọ̀ nìkan ni wọ́n dúró lórí ọ̀rọ̀ federalism ipe bí Nàìjíríà ṣe wà yìí o olúkálùkù láti ní ààyè tara ẹ̀. Àwọn NCNC ìgbà tí Zik dé tó gba NCNC wọ́n ní rárá pé kò sí tó ń jẹ́ federalism wípé ìkan náà gbogbo wa. Àwọn North wọ́n sọ pé àwọn lè ṣe yẹn as long as táwọn bá wà in control. Britain dẹ̀ gbà fún wọn. So àwọn Awólọ́wọ̀ àwa Yorùbá nìkan ló dẹ̀ la dúró lórí ọ̀rọ̀ federalism yẹn nítorí pé ìṣẹ̀dálẹ̀ wa nìyẹn. So gbogbo crisis tó ti wá ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní Nàìjíríà láti ìgbà yẹn bọ́n ṣe máa da ojú federalism yẹn bolẹ̀ ni nǹkan tó lead sí ti January 15, 1966 kú tán ṣe tó lead sí ti July 1966 so gbà tí ọ̀rọ̀ June 12 wá tún ṣẹlẹ̀ làwa kan wá jókòó táwa wò pé ẹ wá a lè máa ṣe báyìí lọ à ń láti wá bá a ṣe máa tún kìíní ṣe ṣùgbọ́n ọ̀nà wo la máa gbé gbà tá a bá ní ìwé tiwa ọ̀nà tiwa dání wípé ọ̀nà tá a fẹ́ gbé gbà lélẹ̀ kò ní ṣeé ṣe a kàn máa bá wọn sáré káàkiri kólúkálùkù ṣe ń sáré káàkiri nìyẹn ohun tó fà á nìyẹn tí a fi dá ẹgbẹ́ yẹn lẹ̀ ńgbà yẹn tán pè ní alájọbí so làwa ní à ń láti kọ ìgbà yẹn dẹ̀ ní ṣe mọ̀ wọ́n ṣe constitution kan 79 wọ́n wá sí Amẹ́ríkà wọ́n gba tiwọn wọ́n kàn bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí kọ́pì gbogbo ẹ̀ wọ́n kàn dáàbò wá lórí bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn àwa ní àwọn ò ní gbà yẹn o wípé à ń láti ṣe constitution tiwa làwa gbé ìgbìmọ̀ kan jáde ìgbìmọ̀ yẹn ló wá ṣe constitution yẹn àmì náà ṣe draft constitution yẹn wọ́n dẹ̀ káàkiri ilẹ̀ Yorùbá wọ́n bá àwọn èèyàn sọ̀rọ̀ àwọn púpọ̀ nu wọn ti kú nísìnyí o but ẹ gbà mí láyè kí n dárúkọ díẹ̀ nu wọn àwọn Dr. Bẹ́ẹ̀kọ́ Ransome Kuti Frederick Fasihun Débọ̀ Àkàndé Mr. CSO Àkàndé ìyẹn tó jẹ́ secretary Western Region Government ńgbà yẹn àwọn wọ́n pọ̀ dáadáa Bishop Gbónígi ló dẹ̀ ṣe adarí wa ńgbà yẹn àwọn baba Adéwálé Thompson Papa James Aluko gbogbo àwọn tó wà ní action group ńgbà yẹn so wọ́n á ṣe kinní yẹn tí inú everybody dẹ̀ dùn sí a dẹ̀ ṣe àkọọ́lẹ̀ a dẹ̀ gbé fún àwọn gómìnà wa ńgbà yẹn yìí pé àwọn Lamadésínà Ifá Ọ̀yọ́ State Executive Council wọ́n ṣèpàdé lórí ẹ̀ wọ́n dẹ̀ fọwọ́ sí wípé ibi tó yẹ kí Yorùbá lọ nìyẹn Lamadésínà ní gọ́fìnà gbà yẹn àwọn aṣíwájú Bọ́lá Tinubu àwọn yẹn ní gbogbo tẹ́ bá fẹ́ bó jẹ́ nípa mídíà ni o nípa kinní kan ni o àwọn rédíò àti gbé fún yín wọ́n ṣe fún wa àwọn Adéfarati àwọn náà tá a bá pè wọ́n sípàdé wọn á wá àwọn ọba gan nígbà yẹn wọ́n wá wọ́n sọ wípé ìgbà táwọn ka kinní yìí àwọn ò rí orúkọ wọn ń bẹ á láti fi àwọn sí àwọn náà fẹ́ lọ́wọ́ sí púpọ̀ náà àwọn ọba yẹn náà máa ń rán èèyàn wọn wá pẹ̀lú ọ̀pá àṣẹ wọn sípàdé tá a bá ń ṣe so wọ́n inú everybody dùn wípé à ń ṣe irú nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn of course òṣèlú dé wọ́n tún da gbogbo ẹ̀rù olúkálùkù ń sá káàkiri but a fi kinní yẹn kó pamọ́ ìgbà tọ́rọ̀ ti wá di bó ṣe rí ní Nàìjíríà ní ìsìn a ti rí pé tá a bá lọ síwájú kò sọ́nà ńbẹ̀ tá a bá ní a fẹ́ padà sẹ́yìn kì í ṣe ẹ̀yìn Nàìjíríà la máa padà sí ẹ̀yìn tiwa láti padà sí ọ̀nà wo la wá fẹ́ gbé gbà ká mú yọ ibi tọ́rọ̀ referendum ti yọ nìyẹn wípé kò sí nǹkan tá a fẹ́ ṣe tí kò bá sí legitimacy láti ọ̀dọ̀ àwọn Yorùbá pé nǹkan tá a fẹ́ ṣe lélẹ̀ bọ́ ẹ bá pè ní restructuring ẹ bá pè ní sovereignty ẹ bá pè ní true federalism ẹ bá pè ní autonomy ẹ bá pè ní self determination táwọn Yorùbá ò bá tí ì fẹnu kò pé n tá a fẹ́ lélẹ̀ kò sẹ́ni tó máa take wa seriously láyé àwa gan ní take ara wa seriously so àwa wò pé a ń láti kọ́kọ́ ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ referendum yẹn lẹ̀ Yorùbá pé yes or no ṣé ibi tá a fẹ́ lọ rè àbí ibi tá a lọ lélẹ̀ tí yẹn bá ti wà lọ́wọ́ wa gbogbo ìtókù kí n kàn sọ ní lérèfé kékeré nìyẹn so ètò wa jẹ wá lógún ni báwo ni a ṣe máa ṣe tó fi máa wà lọ́wọ́ wa ìyẹn ni kókó ọ̀rọ̀ tó wà nílẹ̀ nísìnyí pé ọ̀rọ̀ referendum yìí ìyẹn ló máa sọ ìdùnnú ìrònú àti èròǹgbà àwọn Yorùbá fún gbogbo àwọn tó kù láyé tá a bá ti ṣe yẹn a máa mú kinní kù bá a lọ sí British Parliament o bá a lọ sí American Congress o bá a lọ sí kinní ọ̀rọ̀ legitimacy yẹn ó máa jáde pé ok ẹ gbé kinní ìwà ta lè represent èsì referendum yẹn la máa gbé jáde pé a ti fi ibi tá a ti ń bọ̀ lélẹ̀ ibi tá a ti ń lọ lélẹ̀ gbogbo adẹ̀tún á gbé ìwé yẹn jáde tá a pè ní bill for a referendum bill yẹn gbogbo nǹkan tá a fẹ́ kó ṣe ó ti wà nú ẹ̀ a ti fi ránṣẹ́ sáwọn gómìnà a ti fi ránṣẹ́ sáwọn speakers a ti publish ẹ̀ káàkiri just like bá a ṣe publish draft Yorùbá constitution yẹn ó wà káàkiri ọ̀dọ̀ kò tí ì tó náà a sì máa ṣe gbogbo ètò kù sí so àwa ní ó yẹ ká gbé ìgbìmọ̀ kan dìde tó máa kúkú jẹ́ pé iṣẹ́ tiẹ̀ gan-an iṣẹ́ ìgbìmọ̀ yẹn ìyẹn nìkan ni iṣẹ́ tó máa mú ṣe a lè ní ẹgbẹ́ tó tó 1000 ìyẹn ò ń ṣe problem issue tó wà níbẹ̀ ni pé tá a bá ti sọ pé ibi tá à ń lọ lélẹ̀ ẹni tó bá fẹ́ fọwọ́ sínú wa kó fọwọ́ sí ẹgbẹ́ mi lè sọ pé òun fẹ́ máa lọ sínú igbó ni àwọn tó bá fẹ́ tẹ̀lé wọn lè tẹ̀lé wọn ṣùgbọ́n àní máa jà lórí ta ló máa jẹ́ olórí ẹgbẹ́ ta ni ò ní jẹ́ olórí ẹgbẹ́ ta ló máa ṣígbà ta ni ò ní ṣàwo torí ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn náà ti wà ńlẹ̀ tipẹ́ kì í ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ tó ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ń jáde nílẹ̀ Yorùbá nísìn so àwa ní ká gbé ìgbìmọ̀ yẹn dìde kó jẹ́ pé main issue tán máa deal pẹ̀lú ni ọ̀rọ̀ bá ṣe máa make referendum yẹn to become the topical issue in the land ìyẹn là ń pè ní Yorùbá Referendum Committee àwọn ni mo wá aṣojú wọn bí lénìí ní inú kọmitì yẹn a dẹ̀ ti ń ṣe iṣẹ́ díẹ̀díẹ̀ àti ń gbé jáde díẹ̀díẹ̀ so a wá rí i pé mo fẹ́ di president ni o mi ò di president ni o gbogbo ẹ̀ láti experience rí àti ní Yorùbá tó jẹ́ president rí àti ní Yorùbá tí ò ṣe president rí àti ní tí wọn jẹ́ kó débẹ̀ so ọ̀rọ̀ tó wá wà nílẹ̀ kí n tún connect ẹ̀ mọ́tẹ̀ kan yẹn ni pé ọ̀rọ̀ nation state that is irú state wo ni Nàìjíríà jẹ́ ọ̀rọ̀ tó wà nílẹ̀ nìyẹn pé kì í ṣe pé ó dìgbà tẹ́nìkan bá di president nílùú máa tó tòrò nítorí a mọ̀ pé yẹn ò lè ṣeé ṣe bí ọ̀rọ̀ economy àti politics àgbáyé ṣe rí wọn design colonial Africa láti jẹ́ ká padà sí ipò tọ́lọ́run dá wa sí wọ́n design ẹ̀ pé káwọn jẹ gàba lórí wa ni Brexit àti gbogbo ẹ̀ tó ń ṣe tẹ́ bá rántí àwọn Brexit tí wọ́n ní àwọn ń ṣe Empire 2 tí wọ́n ń ṣe ó dá lórí bọ́n ṣe máa kíkù Nàìjíríà bó ṣe wà kó lè benefit wọn ó wà lára nǹkan tí Prince Charles ni àbí ta ló wá ń gbà yẹn àbí tó wá represent Queen tó lọ wọ́n ní gbogbo nǹkan tó ń ṣe pọ̀ so gbogbo yẹn wà ń bẹ̀ tá láti consider so ìyẹn la wá fi ń sọ pé ọ̀rọ̀ state mi mọ Yorùbá tí màá lò fún tó máa mú dáadáa, state apparatus, state structure, tó jẹ́ pé irú ìjọba wo la fẹ́ ṣe fúnra wa, ibi tọ́rọ̀ constitution àti referendum ti dé nìyẹn, pé irú ìjọba wo. Ní ọ̀dọ̀ wa a mọ̀ pé bí wọ́n ṣe sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan, àwọn bá ṣègùn bá ṣe sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan, pé kò sílùú kankan tó develop tó jẹ́ multi-ethnic, mono-ethnic ní gbogbo wọn. Àfikún ẹ̀ ní pé kò sílùú kankan tó fi èdè elédè develop ààrẹ. Tá a bá lo èdè wa nínú ilé ẹ̀kọ́, kì í ṣe pé ká kàn máa sọ fáwọn ọmọ wa nínú ilé, èdè tá a fi ń ṣe ẹ̀kọ́ nílé ìwé láti primary débi tá a bá lè gbé dé, èdè wa láti fi ṣe. Tá a bá fi èdè wa ṣe, a lè ní lọ síwájú kankan. Ọ̀nà tá a dẹ̀ lè gbà láti fi èdè wa ṣe ní ká ní àyè tara wa lọ́tọ̀. Ìyẹn ò ní ká má bẹ́ẹ̀ lómi ṣe o, àwọn náà káwọn náà lo èdè wọn. Tó bá yá, a máa ní èdè tá a fi máa bára wa sọ̀rọ̀ ní àgbáyé àti ní gbogbo ẹ̀. So olúkálùkù a máa translate èdè ẹ̀ bọ́n ṣe ń ṣe ní ìsìn, a máa ṣe ń gbà yẹn náà. So gbogbo irú nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ló ṣe pàtàkì, tó jẹ́ pé a ń láti wá mú lò àti mú ṣẹ ní ọ̀rọ̀ tó wà nílẹ̀, tá a fi wá ń sọ pé òkè o, ẹ jẹ́ ká bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí bá àwọn èèyàn wa sọ̀rọ̀ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ referendum yìí o, bá a ṣe máa mú ṣẹ. Òótọ́ ni a ti gbé síwájú, àfi tán bá fẹ́ sọ pé àwọn ò kí ń ka ìwé wọn lókù, kò sí gómìnà tí ò ní dání, kò dẹ̀ sí speaker tí ò ní dání, ó dẹ̀ ti wà ń ta, ó wà ń gbòòrò. So ọ̀rọ̀ tó wá wà ńlẹ̀ ni pé báwo ni a ṣe máa jẹ́ kí ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn di nǹkan tó jẹ́ gbogbo wa lógún tá a máa mú ṣe nílẹ̀ ilẹ̀ káàárọ̀ òjíire, àti tá a dẹ̀ máa rí pé àwọn àgbáyé wọ́n fún wa ní support tó necessary. But iṣẹ́ tá a máa kọ́kọ́ ṣe ni káwọn èèyàn wa kán gbà tọwọ́ tẹsẹ̀, kán dẹ̀ ní ibi tá à ń lọ lélẹ̀. Tá a bá ṣe yẹn, tán bá ní wọ́n ṣe kinní kan níbì kan, wọ́n lọ àwọn Fúlàní kan wà níbì kan, àwọn Ìgbò wà níbì kan, tán ti ralẹ̀ lọ, tán ti gba gbogbo ilé. So àwa Yorùbá la wà láàárín. Bẹ́ẹ̀ nìkan ṣe sọ ńgbà kan pé problem Nàìjíríà pé bọ́n ṣe fẹ́ neutralize ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ni. So ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ò ń ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ north nìkan, ọ̀rọ̀ east wà ń bẹ, so olúkálùkù ló ní peculiar issues tiẹ̀ tó dẹ̀ ń láti dìmú. So tá a bá ní a fẹ́ ṣe àbáṣepọ̀ pẹ̀lú àti kọ́kọ́ dilé wa mú náà, ilé ni wọ́n láti ń kẹ̀ṣọ́ ròde, bí àwọn bàbá wa ṣe máa sọ. Ẹ má ní mo pòwe wájú ẹ̀yin àgbà. So in a nutshell, tí any questions tó bá dẹ̀ wá ti díẹ̀ jáde pẹ̀lú bí mo ṣe sọ, nítorí gbogbo ẹ̀ á tún dàbẹ̀ ní pé èèyàn fẹ́ máa sọ colonial history ní, but ó yẹ ká mọ ibi tá a ti ń bọ̀ ká tó lè mọ ibi. Gbogbo nǹkan táwọn sọ́jà ń ṣe àti táwọn ọlọ́pàá ń ṣe kò yàtọ̀. Ìgbà tán dá Nigerian Army sílẹ̀, Royal Hausa Constabulary ni wọ́n pè é. Èkó náà dẹ̀ ti wá set up sí láàrin àwa Yorùbá, Royal Hausa Constabulary. So ipe Nigerian Army di bó ṣe di pé àwọn náà ń control ẹ̀, kì í ṣe pé bóyá orí àwọn kan kọ́ dàrú níjọ́ kan wọ́n láwọn fẹ́ ṣe kínní. Ó ní gbogbo ẹ̀ ó ti wà ńlẹ̀. Àwọn sọ́jà mentality wọn as conquerors ni wọ́n. That's why tán ṣe ń pe àwa tá kì í ṣe sọ́jà tí wọ́n ní bloody civilians ni wá. Wọ́n ti orientation wọn ní pé we are conquered people. Ohun tó jẹ́ kó máa behave bọ́n ṣe ń behave yẹn, they are not defending us, they are conquering us. That is their orientation. The same thing pẹ̀lú ọlọ́pàá. Tẹ́ bá rántí ńgbà kan tí Babangida wọ́n fẹ́ yan Inspector General of Police, ó dàbẹ̀ ní pé under Babangida ni. Chris Omeben ni bóyá deputy àbí òun ló ṣàyẹ kó jẹ́ kínní yẹn. Chris Omeben yẹn ó dàbẹ̀ ní pé Benin àbí Edo ló ti wá. Ńṣe náà retire gbogbo àwọn tí ó wá láti north, láti make sure pé ẹnìkan láti north bọ́ síbẹ̀. So gbogbo ọ̀rọ̀ Nàìjíríà wọ́n ti ṣe election, wọ́n ti ṣe census tí ò lórí tí ò nídìí láti bẹ̀rẹ̀. Wọ́n fúnra wọn ní majority. So àwọn náà máa dictate ta ló máa jẹ olórí ta ni ò ní jó lórí. So gbogbo kìíní yẹn wà ń bẹ̀. Ó dẹ̀ wà nù táwa dẹ̀ ń sọ ní pé tá a bá tiẹ̀ fẹ́ ṣe Nàìjíríà, ẹ jẹ́ kó lúkálùkù fọwọ́ mú àyè tiẹ̀. Kan máa wá rán àwa wá lè decide láàrin àwa Yorùbá, a máa rán ẹnìkan lọ sọ́hùn kó lọ ṣe aṣojú wa lọ́hùn. Tó bá tẹ́ wa lọ́rùn, á dúró ń bẹ̀. Tí ò bá tẹ́ wa lọ́rùn, á fayọ ń bẹ̀. Àwọn kọ́ náà máa dictate fún wa. Báwo ni emir, ẹni tó ní tọ́ní system Emirate Council tí ò ní constitutional kìnínú tó máa wá máa sọ fún àwa tá a ní constitutional monarchy wípé báyìí ló ṣe yẹ ká ṣe? Àbí àwọn tán ní wọn nídìí ọba nílùú wọn, báwọn Ìgbò ṣe máa ń sọ pé àwọn ò nídìí ọba, pé everybody lọ́ba. Nígbà tẹ́ ẹ̀ lọ́ba, tẹ́ ẹ̀ dẹ̀ ní everybody lọ́ba, àwa ní ọba. Báwo lẹ ṣe máa wá ní kájọ jókòó kájọ máa sọ pé à ń ṣèlú kan náà? Kò ṣeé ṣe. Otherwise a máa bára wa jà ní nǹkan tó wà nílẹ̀. So oríṣiríṣi tó wà nílẹ̀ tó fèsì wa, ó wà tó ń pè ní existential threat, ó wà nílẹ̀. Ìyẹn làwa dẹ̀ rò pé ọ̀rọ̀ referendum yẹn àti draft constitution yẹn ó máa solve, nítorí ó point wa lọ́nà. Kì í ṣe pé bóyá a kàn ń sọ ní ṣe theory, a kàn ń sọ ní kíní pé ọ̀nà rèé, eléyìí báyìí ni, eléyìí ni. Nínú bí referendum yẹn, ìgbìmọ̀ kan á wà tó máa negotiate on behalf of Yoruba people anywhere láyé. Inú draft constitution gbogbo ẹ ti wà ń bẹ̀ lórí báwo la ṣe fẹ́ gbé ìgbésí ayé wa, báwo la ṣe fẹ́ ṣe lè, báwo la ṣe fẹ́ ṣe tán, gbogbo ẹ ló ti wà ń bẹ̀. So tá a bá ti lè kí sínú yẹn, gbogbo ìtókù nǹkan kékeré ló máa jẹ́. Ṣé mo ṣì láyè sí àbí ó ti dà bẹ́ẹ̀?
Ṣe rí ibi tí ẹ bá mi wá ọkọ̀ yẹn dé, ó ti dáa jù. Ẹ ṣé, mo dúpẹ́ púpọ̀ lọ́wọ́ yín. Ààyè sì tún máa wà tẹ́ máa fi bá wa dá sí ìjíròrò náà. Tẹ́ bá ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa, Emilere Ìlútúnwàṣẹ, ẹ káàbọ̀ sórí ètò ní máa ń pè, ṣùgbọ́n mo máa ń sọ wípé àwùjọ ìjíròrò oníjàre, àwùjọ ìjíròrò ní fún ìfọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀ fún òmìnira Yorùbá, ìfọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀. Àwọn tó gbé ìbò wọn fọ collaboration for Yoruba freedom. And àwa tá a kóra wa jọ ní ṣékélé tá a wà ń bì, àwa tí a fẹ́ máa ja ìjà gbára ní ìjà ọgbọ́n, strategic direction. If you've just joined me, thank you so much for joining me today. We are here to learn. But I think the most important thing is to rejoice that we got so many different ways by which we want to get to the door of freedom and get ourselves released. We've got petition, we've got Yoruba referendum, we've got draft constitution, we've got something brilliant, very new. It's called constitutional force majeure. And today, we are here to look at what is very important, legality of all of this. Kò wúlò ká kan máa sọ wípé nǹkan báyìí la fẹ́ mú ṣe, èwo ni a lè rí òfin tìlẹ́yìn tó máa gbé wa débẹ̀. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí àwọn alàgbà ọ̀dẹ́dẹ̀ yìí ti sọ, wọ́n ní ibikíbi tó bá wo olúkálùkù, òun ló lè dorí kọ, ìyẹn ò gbọ́dọ̀ fa ìdíwọ́. Ṣùgbọ́n ká mọ̀ wípé tẹ́lẹ̀ bá lòun fẹ́ lọ sí Ìjẹ̀ṣà land, á tẹ̀lé. Tẹ́lẹ̀ bá lòun kó wa lọ sí Abẹ́òkúta, á tẹ̀lé. Tẹ́lẹ̀ bá lòun kó wa lọ sí Ilé Ogbó, á tẹ̀lé. Kàṣà àti débì kan ṣá, òun lọ̀rọ̀ yìí. Àwọn alàgbà tán sọ̀rọ̀ yẹn, àwọn kan kó yan ara wọn ní kó yan yín kéré o. Àwọn gan ni coordinator gbogbo tán pé Yorùbá referendum. Tí n bá gbà wọ́n láyè ni, ìtàn yẹn á lọ púpọ̀. Let me go straight on. And first of all, I want to welcome everybody calls him Mr. Ajagbe. He's not a Mr. Ajagbe because it was Mr. Ajagbe who invited me to Liverpool some years back. Mr. Ajagbe, as they call, he's a prince. He's a prince of Ile Ogbo, a very prominent Yoruba man in Liverpool. And if some of us don't know, Liverpool is where many Yorubas who came by boat, including my mom and dad, They came into UK via Oriel into United Kingdom, whereas the Caribbeans or people of far West Africa, they came through another arena. So it's one day he invited me to come and meet the Yorubas, and he put me next to somebody I thought, this is a Labour man. By the time he started talking to me, conservative, I'm about Jagbe, but since then, he's been so wonderful. It's a real privilege, as always, to have Professor Solomon Kundayo Salako. I'm not going to introduce him. He's going to introduce himself. Please, if you see that it's going on for a long time, he, in fact, is the person on the very hot seat today to convince us that all these avenues, that we can go through all of them and either get lost or find our way. So join me in welcoming again in Liverpool. He's based in Liverpool. Let's go to Liverpool and join Professor Solomon Salako. Over to you, Professor Salako. You have up to 40 minutes to get us through all these different arenas. Ekabo, Professor. Professor, are you there with me? You may have to unmute. Let me see, I'm sure he's there with us. Professor, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Welcome, Professor. Yeah, Ijo Dijo Nyo.
Of Odiremo, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Professor Solomon Salako of Liverpool University. I'm a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria of 42 years standing and an academic of 37 years standing. My areas of expertise are corporate and business law, international human rights law, international law, and international relations, among others, on which areas I've written numerous books and articles and attended numerous international conferences. I listened attentively to Chief Dr. Oni and the last speaker, Chief Odedi. There are two things that struck me. One, by Dr. Oni, the mention of self-determination, and by Chief Odedi, referendum. In fact, in Chief Dr. Oni's presentation, we have the skeletal framework of tackling these problems that we Yoruba find ourselves. Well, what I want to do is to clarify some misconceptions, misapprehensions, and to deal with how we got into this problem and how we can get out of the problem. Federalism, restructuring, autonomy, etc., are not the answers. The only answer we have is to have an independent Oduduwa Republic, which I'm sure we can achieve in my lifetime. Now, without much ado, let me proceed by an introduction. According to Chief Obafemi Awolowo, in his Path to Nigerian Freedom, 1947, at pages 47 to 48, Nigeria is not a nation. It is a mere geographical expression. Now, I want to look at the term states. The term states is often relative, for there may be states within a state, and a single state like Nigeria includes several nations. Just as in the United Kingdom, we have 4 nations: England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, with 3 legal systems, because Scots law is quite different from English law. The law in Northern Ireland is slightly different from the law in England and Wales. 3 nations: the Yoruba, the Hausa Fulani, and the Igbo are within the states. I was extremely happy when Dr. Oni mentioned the characteristics of a state in international law, the 4 characteristics: ascertainable population, definitive limit, a government that can make its will effective, and sufficient independence from other states. What I want to say is that, well, we, the Yoruba, fulfill all these, so we should have our own states. But we cannot hold a referendum, as suggested by some commentators, without ascertaining whether or not the nations forming what is now known as Nigeria want to continue to coexist. A quick look at the constitutions of 1960, 1979, and 1999 shows how the Yoruba and the Igbo sleepwalked into federalism, and why maintaining the status quo is not an option for the Yoruba and the Igbo. 2, sleepwalking into federalism. At the 1958 Constitutional Conference in London, the premiers of Western and Eastern regions believed, as the British Secretary of State for the Colonies has intimated, that the creation of more states should redress the balance between the North and the South. The Hausa dominated Northern region opted for confederation with powers to secede, while the Western region opted for classical federalism, similar to that in the United States of America. And Eastern region, but for quasi-federalism. But the Secretary of State for the Colonies indicated that if the demand for more states was insisted upon, either before or after the election in 1959, the British government had no alternative but to postpone the election. Professor Chua Elias, who later became the president of the International Court of Justice, in his book, Nigeria, the Development of its Laws and Constitution, 1967, chapter 1, reiterated that the Southerners, when they realized that more states were not going to be created, agreed to confederation with power to secede. But this was rejected by the British government. Had the Southerners realized that federalism in a multi-ethnic society with a region like the North, which could override the South, could produce a winner-takes-all situation where losers became hostages to the winning faction, they would have opted for confederation with power to secede ab initio. Unfortunately, the Southerners were outmaneuvered. And that's why we are in the situation we are. The European Convention on Human Rights, 1950, was incorporated into the Independence Constitution of 1960. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1979, is a mishmash of the US Constitution, the British Constitution, and the Constitution of the Republic of Ireland. it is not autochthonous. That is, it is not homegrown, homebred, or indigenous to the soil. The 1999 Constitution is a travesty of constitutional promulgation, a critique of the Nigerian Alliance for Self-Determination. There are two aspects of self-determination: the internal and the external aspects. External self-determination for colonial peoples ceases to exist under international law once it is implemented. That is, once the people have attained self-determination. Internal self-determination is the right to an authentic self-government, but internal self-determination, unlike external self-determination, is an ongoing right of the people to choose their own political and economic regime. The right to self-determination exists under treaty law by virtue of Article 1 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966, and Article 1 of the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, 1966. The first article of both covenants is identical, and Article 20 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, 1981. If the goal to be pursued by the Nigerian Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination is internal self-determination, then all options, including the three nations constituting the Federal Republic of Nigeria, going their separate ways, that is, secession or partitioning, must be considered. The views of Generals Gowon and Obasanjo are in conflict or at variance with the consensus of the Yoruba and the Igbo, who want to leave the Federation and become republics independent of Nigeria. Prescription, or what is to be done. Option 1, federalism. Maintain the status quo. This is not an option for the Yoruba and the Igbo for the following reasons. 1, federalism is prone to a winner-takes-all government. 2, the politics of confrontation makes a mockery of federalism in Nigeria. Power was handed over to a civilian regime on October 1st, 1979, and the presidential system modeled on the United States Constitution was imposed. 3, since independence on 1st October 1960, Nigeria has experienced a total of 29 years of military rule, 1966 to 1979, and 1984 to 1998. About half who've been independent for 60 years. Almost half have been on military rule. The American system, 4, the American system is too expensive to run in a developing country. 5, Northern politicians do not respect or allow the principles of federalism to flourish because of the politics of confrontation and the ineffectiveness of the principles of constitutionalism. Option 2, confederation. A federal state is a union of states with a strong center in which the control of external relations has been permanently surrendered to central government. In a confederation, a central government exists, but it does not control all the external relations of the member states. And therefore, for international purposes, there exists not one, but a number of states. 5 problems with confederation. 1,
What?
although the idea of confederation with power to secede
Huh? Dúró.
there is interruption. Okay, 5 problems with confederation.
I've removed the person, thank you.
Yes, 5 problems with confederation. 1, although the idea of confederation with power to secede was mooted by Sir Ahmadu Bello, the then Premier of Northern Region, at the 1958 London Constitutional Conference, The then Premier of Western Region, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, favored classical federalism. And Dr. Nnamdi Ezekwe, the then Premier of Eastern Region, favored quasi-federalism. When the last two changed their minds and opted for confederation, they were outmaneuvered by the British colonial power. 2, it will not work because of the stranglehold the Hausa Fulani had on Nigerian armed forces and the politicization of the armed forces by the same Hausa Fulani. 3, the Hausa Fulani believe that they have a divine right to rule Nigeria. 4, the proffered Islamization of Nigeria by the Hausa Fulani will not go away in a hurry. I repeat that, the proffered Islamization of Nigeria by the Hausa Fulani will not go away in a hurry. As a matter of fact, the outgoing President of the United States of America, President Trump, asked Buhari when he went to White House, before he left the press conference, asked him, I hope you are not going to Islamize Nigeria. Buhari was moved. He couldn't say anything then. And that silence is deafening, extremely deafening. He didn't say no, he didn't say yes. 5, Boko Haram are backed by the same northern elite who want to Islamize the whole country. Option 3, partitioning or secession. The Yoruba and the Igbo separately leaving the entity known as Nigeria by exercising their internal right to self-determination in international law. See Kosovo Advisory Opinion 2004, International Court of Justice Report 403, where the International Court of Justice concluded that the Declaration of Independence of 17 February 2008 by Kosovo did not violate international law, but stopped short of deliberating on secession, which was not within their remit, because it was not a question certified by the UN General Assembly for their answer. We should note also Judge Kankado Trindade, in a separate opinion, in Kosovo Advisory Opinion 2010, International Court of Justice Report, pages 523 to 617, especially paragraph 184, where he stated that the current evolution of international law and international practice of states and international organizations provides support for the exercise of the right to self-determination by people under permanent adversity or in case of systematic oppression or subjugation. I want to repeat that. That the current evolution of international law and international practice of states and international organizations provide support for the exercise of the right to self-determination by people under permanent adversity or in case of systematic oppression and subjugation. Now, those who are in doubt that we could pull out of Nigeria need to look at these examples that I'm going to cite. 1, the secession of Bangladesh from Pakistan in 1971, just after the Nigerian Civil War, 1967 to 1970. 2, South Sudan, 2011. They voted by 92% in a referendum that they wanted to leave Sudan. It was granted. It was supervised by the United Nations, and they became the 193rd member state of the UN and the 55th of the African Union. 3, Czechoslovakia was partitioned on 1st January 1993 without firing a shot into Czech Republic with capital in Prague and Slovakia with capital in Bratislava. 4, Scotland, as Nicola Sturgeon rightly stated, a yes vote in a referendum is the only thing the Scots need to leave the United Kingdom. Having said all this, nobody accused Nicola Sturgeon of treason. I'm hearing certain things. In fact, I wanted to write a paper in the Washington Post to debunk all that. Whoever is advising them must be very poor lawyers. We can leave Nigeria today if we vote overwhelmingly that we want to go. Nobody can stop us. And as a matter of fact, Chief Dr. Oni has set the ball in motion. He has provided the skeletal framework, and I can help in putting the legal framework to achieve the objective. What are my conclusions? There are factions and fractions of the Yoruba struggling for ascendancy in this juridical political debate on the future of the Yoruba. Misconceptions, misapprehensions, and flawed arguments abound. For example, the term force majeure is used inappropriately to describe the internal right of self-determination of people under permanent adversity or in case of systematic oppression and subjugation. The term force majeure, as I understand it, means an event or effect that can be neither anticipated nor controlled, such as acts of nature, that is, tsunami, floods, or hurricane, or acts of people such as riots, strikes, or wars. It is the right of the Yoruba and the Igbo to choose their own political and economic regime under international law. And this is not treason, as erroneously suggested by President Buhari and his advisors, or to be feared by Generals Gowon and Obasanjo. I want to mention that Gowon was in this country for 9 years. And the same Theophilus Danjuma was coming here almost every year to ask for his extradition. If he had been extradited, he would have been executed. I'm stunned that Gowon was with them, ranked himself with them. Nigeria, like former Czechoslovakia and Sudan, could be partitioned into viable independent states after a referendum in which the Yoruba and the Igbo, each voting separately, decide by a majority to leave the federation. Unlike external self-determination for colonial peoples, which ceases to exist under customary international law, once implemented, the people's right to internal self-determination is not extinguished, but it's being already invoked. The right to internal self-determination is a continuing right. We have the right to ask for a referendum for the Oduduwa Republic. And if we vote overwhelmingly, we'll be allowed to go legally. That is my submission.
We can't hear you anymore. Professor, we can't hear you anymore.
Well, I've concluded my submission.
Thank you very much indeed, if you have.
Yes, I have. I said that.
If you've just, thank you. If you've just joined us, thank you. That's the moment I was waiting for. Let me now explain how this is going to work. If I see you've raised your hand, I will call you, but please restrict your question to the topic of today. And there are 3 key areas for us to look at. 1, petitions. 2, referendum. 3, constitutional force majeure. And finally, the strategic way forward. So the first person I have got here is somebody called Wole Oni. So may I invite you to ask your questions, and please name who you wish to answer your question if you do know.
Thank you, Ma. Can you hear me?
Very well, yes.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Wole Oni. My question is to Professor Salako. But before I ask my question, I just want to thank the three eminent Yoruba academics. The first one, Bashig, is actually my brother. And then Chief Femi Odedeyi for referendum, and of course, Professor Salako. Thank you all for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. My question, sir, to Professor Salako is that, given the, I mean, if it is so easy to take Yoruba out of Nigeria by voting to go, why has it been so difficult? You know, we have the issue that the federal government will never ever allow a referendum. The Igbos have been asking for a referendum to leave Nigeria. They would not allow them. We know that there's no way they will allow us to a referendum which will confirm that where we want to leave. The problem, Tani, these people, like you said in your submission, that they have this crazy idea that Nigeria belongs to them, and they want to keep everything for their benefits, because we all know where they're benefiting. They're taking the wealth from the south to develop the north. They're not even taking it to develop the Niger Republic. So how do we, if it is so easy to break away, if only we can have this referendum, why can't we have this referendum be gone and take Yoruba out of Nigeria, sir?
I think the first question is that, well, let me put this question to you. Do we speak with one voice? Of course we don't. There are still Yorubas who believe in federalism or a variant of federalism, or the so-called autonomy or restructuring. If we believe that, well, there is no chance of any coexistence with them, we can set in motion the plan to leave the country. If that is what we want, we will be granted the referendum eventually. We will be asked to present our case. But most of the arguments I've had are political arguments, but not the legal arguments in international law. The internal right of self-determination is a continuing right and is part of customary international law. We have the right to determine our economic and political future.
May I interrupt, please,
Yes.
Professor? For
Yes.
the purpose of lay people,
Yes.
question is very important.
Yes.
We have a right to do so.
Yes.
We can set in motion. May I invite you to explain how we set in motion in order to assert our right?
You see, that was why I said that, well, I support entirely what Chief Dr. Oni is doing. As a matter of fact, I've spoken to Dr. Oni before. He might have forgotten. So I like what he's doing, but we need to give it a legal punch. Why we have a right under international law?
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
For me, I want to be focused.
Yes.
One, Dr. Oni is talking about petition.
Yes.
He's talking about petition. So let me be clear. Now, petition is a way forward.
Yes.
And if we say petition is the way forward, may I ask, what robust legal packaging does it require?
Well,
because yes, thank you.
Well, it doesn't require much legal packaging, but just to state our rights under international law.
Okay.
And that, well, there is no other form of coexistence we can have with the Hausa Fulani.
Okay.
Yes.
I want you to stop there, because so that people can understand. The first thing we've got out of this session is that petition seems to be the #1 most effective. and that is, we are saying, which is our right, these people, we don't want to have anything to do with them anymore. And I want to emphasize this. What seems to be going around is that people, with greatest respect, believe it's because of all these Fulani headsmen wahala, that is the reason for us getting out. And I've always said, it's no reason for us to, it's not needed.
No. We
Before
don't need
Fulani, sorry, before Fulanis, go ahead.
The constitutional system we are locked in is unworkable. It's oppressive to us.
That's fine. That's fine. I want to be taking this.
We want to exercise our right to self-determination under customary international law.
Thank you. Can I stop you there, please, Professor? Now, I think I need that coming one by one, for the sake of those who are not of the level that some of us or some of you may be. So I want to emphasize this. It's very important to emphasize this. That's not the issue. It's not because of Fulani. Until one sọ fún wa ni pé alẹ́tọ̀ọ́ lásán pé àwọn ará bí ìyá àbá wọn ṣe mọ́. Ṣe tipátipá àbá wọn ṣe mọ́. And I want to progress this further. Professor, I've had most cherished privilege of attending a couple of meetings in the last week. One was marked Never Again, and it's organized to mark the 51st anniversary of the end of the Biafran War. And lots of high-profile people there. I want to warn you, if you please, if you continue, I'm going to be left with no option other than to remove anybody I'm hearing noise from. I will remove you and you can come back in. So let me go forward. Professor, what I kept hearing, lots of high-profile politicians, including existing senators. I'm hearing the word, we must remain one nation. We must remain one nation. We must remain, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who've always heard this thing. Nigeria's unity is non-negotiable. Something like that.
It is negotiable. It is.
Thank you.
Under customary international law.
Just stop there. We've all heard it. So, it is negotiable. I want to go on further. I also want to find out whether there's a need for us to go into alliance or alliances with different sections of the current geographical area of Nigeria for us to succeed.
Well, I can answer that quickly.
Thank you.
I can answer that quickly.
Thank you.
It is recognized in international law that there can be nations within a state as defined. There can be nations within a state as defined. And my authority is Adam Chipman, the Law of Nations, Bradley's Law of Nations. Adam A. Chipman, Bradley's Law of Nations. There can be nations within a state. Now, in Nigeria, and that was why
Professor, can you please stop for a moment? Please, if you have to keep moving, can you leave this Zoom area? I beg of you. I do appeal to you. If you have to keep moving about, please exit the Zoom area. Over to you, Professor.
There are nations within a state. Just as in United Kingdom, we have 4 nations within the states. Nicholas Sturgeon wants to leave, wants the Scots to leave. If they have a majority vote at a referendum, nobody is accusing her of treason because they have the right under customary international law, the internal right of self-determination.
Can I stop you there? Professor, what I struggle with, and I do struggle with this in court, when people are presenting a case, too much of the information is difficult for ordinary people to take in. We've established one important point, and that is whether Fulani herdsmen exist, whether we are, as they always say, oh, Nigeria is a place where there's tolerance and we've always lived happily ever after, so why is there a problem? The most important thing is we have a right to take into our hands our own life. Whether we are happy since 27th century is irrelevant. If we decide under customary clause we want to get out, we need to get out. And we don't need to tolerate any further. Unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. We've been told today, legally no such exists. Let me go straight on to Samuel Yerokun. Your question, please.
Right, thank you, ma'am. I'm looking at the presentation by Mr. Femi Dede, and also looking at the legal aspects. So when we talk about petitions, we're talking about pressures from the international community. But what I want to ask is that what exactly can we do within Nigeria itself, especially with the governors and the State House of Assemblies, where they can pass a bill for us to have a referendum? Because if we don't go through, and that's my opinion, I'm not a legal person, but my opinion is that—
Can I stop you
just
there?
like Amatekun was set up.
Please stick to the question. I don't need an opinion. Please stick to the question. May I ask you to repeat the question, please?
Okay. If we have the— okay, if we have the petitions as an international pressure, what can we do with the state governors and the House of Assembly in order to secure a bill for referendum?
Thank you. Over to you. Professor, would it be a relevant question for you?
Oh, yes, it's relevant. A petition is the starting point. Now, if you can get a petition in and you can state your legal arguments clearly. Now, if there is any argument with the Nigerian government, they can refer that to the International Court of Justice to decide once and for all. Do we have the right to go? Of course, yes. The authority is the Kosovo Advisory Opinion. Are we people? Yes. There's an avalanche of cases on the fact that, well, each of these nations are peoples and they have the right to self-determination. Can we go? Kosovo Advisory Opinion answer that in the affirmative. So we can leave. That is the point. But
thank you.
We need to.
Thank you. Can I say, don't send me questions to the chat page. I won't answer you. So if you want to ask a question, please be patient and raise up your hand. May I invite Alagba or Dede to ask this question? Please keep to your question. No preamble and no opinion of yours. Just a question.
No, I want to answer the question. Is that okay? The questions that was asked.
Please go ahead.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the issue is very simple. Whether it's a petition or whatever, the point is, Google examples that has been cited had a legitimacy issue. As we are speaking now, even the Scottish independence movement still had to deal with the legitimacy issue by organizing one when they failed in the referendum in 2014. They are now looking at the victory of the SNP in the May election that will also give them the further legitimacy. So if we are talking about either sovereignty or self-determination or even federalism, by the way, federalism has different components. It's not
Can I
simply
stop you? Can I stop you? Can I stop you, please?
Yes.
You really haven't. I'm terribly sorry. I need to be fair.
Yeah.
The question here at this moment, and I don't want people getting lost in what's happening in Scotland. We're not Scottish people. We spend too much time. I'm sorry. We spend too much time. Leave Scotland. Law, the law. Does the law, whether Scotland is referendum or not, I don't care. Is the law that
yes,
gives us the right?
the question of whether
yes
it is
or
sovereignty, whether it is sovereignty or whatever, is not only a question of law. It's a political issue. It's a political issue. So what we need to do is to address that political issue that will now encourage the legal.
Thank you. Can I stop you? Can I stop you there?
Yes.
The reason why I keep being firm, people are watching us. They know nothing about Scotland.
Yeah,
so
okay,
let's be
fine,
focused.
no problem.
Let me ask this. Yes, be focused. The point you made, which is a political issue, please expatiate.
Okay. The question is, referendum tá ń sọ yẹn ló máa address political issue yẹn, because the referendum is saying ẹ̀yin ọmọ Yorùbá níbo lẹ fẹ́ kí lẹ fẹ́ ṣe. Tá a bá ti sọ pé àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá nǹkan tá a fẹ́ leléyìí, ìyẹn ti fún wa ní political power tá a ní. Tàwa tó bá di ọ̀rọ̀ legal issue, Nàìjíríà ò lè sọ pé ká má ṣe nǹkan táwa ọmọ Yorùbá la fẹ́ ṣe. Nítorí pé
Alàgbà Adédèyí, you are repeating what Professor has already said. He said, as Yoruba people, we have a right to do this.
Yes.
Right. So ẹ má jẹ́ ká tún tẹ̀síwájú.
No, repeat the right manifestation of that right là ń sọ yìí. Tá a bá jókòó bá ṣe jókòó yìí, yes, a ní right tá a fẹ́ ṣe.
Sherry manifest ẹ máa gbọ́ kó lè yé mi, Sherry gbogbo kó lè yé mi. Ẹ má jẹ́ ká fi ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ká fi ṣe ń tá máa lọ́lọ́. Number one, legally a ní láti meet the criteria láti ṣe. Politically a ní láti meet the criteria láti ṣe. Àmọ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn sìn. Ohun tí mo wá bí ni pé, which goes to the question tí Mr. Oyerokun béèrè ni pé, ṣá máa lobby wọn ní to get political clout? Please wait. Or what you said is, tabasha àti jókòó pọ̀, tá la fẹ́ ṣe. Explain what you mean by the political aspect of this issue.
Oh, okay. The whole concept of any rights is a political concept. In other words, any right àti sọ pé nǹkan tá a fẹ́ ṣe lélẹ̀. So àwa sọ pé ọ̀nà wo la máa gbé gbà tá a fi lè ṣe. Bá a ṣe jókòó tá à ń sọ̀rọ̀ yìí, à ń express right wa náà ni, but ìyẹn ò mú kíkiní yẹn ṣe. Ó lọ́nà tá ń láti gbé gbà, tá ń láti fi ṣe. Ọ̀nà tá a dẹ̀ fẹ́ gbé gbà làwa ń sọ pé okay, ẹ jẹ́ káwa Yorùbá ṣe referendum láàárín ara wa. Kì í ṣe kí Nàìjíríà ṣe referendum o. Láàárín ara wa ká ṣe referendum lórí nǹkan tá a fẹ́. Ìbéèrè tí wọ́n dẹ̀ wá béèrè ni pé.
Professor said that. He said, within yourself, you can do the referendum. Ìgbò lè ṣe tiẹ̀, kí Yorùbá náà ṣe tiẹ̀.
So nǹkan táwa ń sọ nìyẹn. Nǹkan táwa wá ń sọ nìyẹn pé ibi tí bá ṣe máa wá ṣe ní ká gẹ̀tì àwọn gómìnà wa àtàwọn House of Assembly wa kán fi òfin sí. Ibi tọ́rọ̀ politics àti legality ti wọlé.
Can I come in?
No, please, Professor. Let me make this quite clear. Number one, we have established the fact that now our version àti rí political àti rí legal. Ẹ wá sọ̀rọ̀ pé Yorùbá referendum wà. Okay, that Yorùbá referendum we stop tí Alàgbà Odédèyí sọ ní pé kí àwọn òṣèlú tí wọ́n ti dìbò fún nínú agbo òṣèlú kí wọ́n fi òfin tẹ̀ ó dáa. Professor, over to you now.
A referendum supervised by the United Nations is what we should petition for. A referendum supervised by the United Nations will be difficult for any organ of government in Nigeria to challenge it. A referendum supervised by the United Nations.
So basically, kó lè yé wa, ta ló ń ná mò ń bọ̀ àwọn ẹ ṣe sùúrù. Now, kókó ọ̀rọ̀ yìí sì ni wípé mo fẹ́ kẹ́ rántí pé ìjókòó yìí kì í ṣe ìjókòó pé ẹ má gba petition mọ́, kì í ṣe ìjókòó ẹ má gba referendum mọ́, kì í ṣe ìjókòó ẹ má lọ ṣe rally mọ́, ó ti o. A kàn ń wo gbogbo orí ọ̀fẹ́ tá a ní, èwo ni ó máa tètè mú náírà wá fún wa tá a máa lọ lú wa tó ń jẹ́ Yorùbá nation. Ẹ jẹ́ kí n wá àwọn tó náwó sókè. Alàgbà Táíwò Akínọlá, ṣẹ́nìkan láwọn fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, ẹ jọ̀ọ́ máa jẹ́ kí n kàn sáré sọ ilé yìí lórí ṣẹ́rìmà. Even tí United Nations bá máa fọwọ́ sí ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ ẹ̀ ní káwọn èèyàn wa nílé wa kan fọwọ́ sí. Ohun tá a máa gbé lọ sí United Nations nìyẹn. Táwọn gómìnà wa àtàwọn tán bá ti pass law yẹn pé nǹkan tá a fẹ́ ṣe leléyìí. United Nations ò ní lọ́rọ̀ sọ mọ́.
Ẹ mọ tí fẹ́ sọ fún yín, Alàgbọ́dédè yìí, àwa wà pẹ̀lú yín. Jerry, what you are saying, Ejo, what you are saying, I'm repeating. The petition tí Dr. Oni tí wọ́n ṣiṣẹ́ lé lọ́wọ́, gbogbo ẹ náà la máa lọ sign ẹ̀. Referendum, ibi tẹ́ ẹ bá ti gbé gbà, á tẹ̀lé yín. Ṣé omi ti yé yín? Then a tún ní option mìíràn. N tó sọ ní ìjókòó yìí kì í ṣe ìjókòó sọ wípé ẹ̀yin kan ni ẹ má ṣe yìí mọ́. Ó tí o. Ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n ń fi yé wa, ẹ wò, tí èèyàn bá ní ìṣòro tó bá gba lọ́ọ̀yà kalẹ̀, lọ́ọ̀yà yẹn á fún yín ní gbogbo bí tẹ́ máa dojú ọ̀rọ̀ yín kọ. Kí tó bá wù yín lè jókòó tẹ́ bá ti lówó ẹ dojú ẹ̀kọ́ mẹ́tẹ̀ẹ̀ta. Tí petition kò sí iye tó máa cost wa, Dr. Oni ló máa sanwó ẹ̀, a kàn fowó sí signature ni. Ní kọ́bọ̀ tá a fẹ́ san. Let's go straight on to Alàgbà Táíwò Akínọlá. Táíwò Akínọlá, are you there? Please unmute. I can see you are there. Are you still there, or I can't see you there?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Now, over to you. Yes.
Okay. Kì í ṣe question mo fẹ́ béèrè, just clarification. Basically, balance of power problem ló ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní Nàìjíríà. And Yorùbá ní àrírú eléyìí wọ́n ní àfindẹ́rù bọ́ lọ́rọ̀ ni. As far back as 404 BC ní Greeks, ní àárín àwọn Athens àti Spartans ó ṣẹlẹ̀. Àrírú ẹ̀ ní Greek, àrírú ẹ̀ ní United Kingdom, bísọ̀ kò new. À ń sọ pé a fẹ́ lọ operationality ó divided into two. The legal side, as the prof rightly analyzed. There is also the political side of it. Ipe I need internal mobilization. Ibe ẹni referendum ti dé. Ipe bá a bá ṣe gbé ẹrù wa ni àwọn ará àta bá wa gbé. Àti UN àti gbogbo ẹ̀. Nínú mobilization yẹn, a tún ní the alliance mobilization. Ó involve internal mobilization ti àwa fúnra wa Yorùbá. Then alliance pẹ̀lú ara àwọn other nations within the Nigerian system. Ìwọ ni Igbo, ìwọ ni Middle Belt. Because ìgbà tí Igbo dánwò tán, ìgbà tán máa fi declare civil war kí Awólọ́wọ̀ tó délé, ibẹ̀ yẹn náà ti lose ogun yẹn straight away tó sọ pé ojúkú lòun ò ní time káwó tó délé, ẹni tó mọ̀ pé ó lè ní influence lórí the final decision. So in terms of operationality, alliance within and alliance outside brought instability tó wà ní intervention, internal alliance consolidation, alliance within the members of Nigerian nations within Nigeria. Totally, the support. Then external one. I think that's the clear point.
Thank you.
Operational ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I think that clarifies it nicely. Now, let me go straight to Dr. Sholauni. He wants to also clarify certain points. Over to you, Dr. Oni. Dr. Oni, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
There's a slight problem with relying on the present governors and so on and so forth to bring matters forwards. In fact, I call them military gestated politicians. Because their alliance is not strictly to us. I mean, it's not that they're traitors, but their alliance is not strictly to us. So that if we are waiting until they are going to come or be persuaded to do something, we may be waiting forever because they believe they're either.
I'm going to interrupt you, please, doctor. I'm going to interrupt you. I don't want anybody suggesting that any option that is tabled here today is not come to fruition. I'm a firm believer in if you've elected people to do work and you are paying them, just as Alagba Odede said, their role is to facilitate
I was going to
a bill. We must, no, me need to, Cherry, I have to say this. If we have 10 options here today, the 10 options, we have been able to get legal opinion on over the 10 options. So do you want to answer any of the questions without saying, don't talk to politicians?
No, that's not what I meant at all.
What is it there?
I'm talking of speed now. And what I was going to suggest was that instead of a referendum, we could conduct polling. In other words, we can have a situation where we conduct polling in Yoruba land and simply ask, I don't know who we can arrange to do that.
That's extra.
Yes, simply to go around
extra.
Ask ordinary rank and file Yoruba if they want independence. Even that alone, without having to fight over a referendum or whatever, that alone might be enough. And I can tell you why I have misgivings about referendum. Catalan is a very good example. Catalan in Spain. They had a referendum. Over 90% of them wanted their own state. Spain said no. And that was it.
You see, you are venturing into the political arena. You see, the political arena is a game of dice. No, those who are politicians, they are not looking for quick solution. If referendum, you see, unlike you, because of your profession, if there is a situation, you are looking for effective action straight away. Politicians go all over the place. Some of us will go and protest at Downing Street. Some of us will go on the roof to the town hall. Some of us, we will decide, will liaise with unions and strike. So it is actually, we're looking at political strategy now, and we are praising the different ones. I agree with you that we need a quick pass. But right now, this program is unwilling to say this is the only way for everybody to follow. Because at the end of the day, we need to mobilize people. And political tool is to go your petition way. If we can get 500,000 people to sign your petition, what does it matter? We know those who will be supporting the referendum. If we move them in the direction of referendum, And if we, at the same time, are pursuing your petition and ensuring there's a legal dimension which is very clearly will be backed by United Nations. If United Nations backed it as well, and also UK backs it, who cares? We are just going to get into an arena where I will say we are ready to do effective lobbying in all directions possible. It's all part of lobbying. So let me take myself away from you, unless there's anything else you want to say very quickly, which is to do with your petition or anything else.
No, the only thing I wanted to suggest, which I had already suggested, was polling. That we have a polling and see. I don't know how how one can finance that, which could be done by I don't know which polling.
Well, just about Doctor, just suggest polling.
Yeah,
polling. I don't worry about money. Never. Don't worry about money. No, I don't worry about money. Once the idea is there and it's going to work, who is going to worry about money? Let me go straight on to the next person who is waiting to have a chat with us. God's agenda for Nigeria. Over to you. God's agenda for Nigeria. That's the name I have.
Thank you very much. Yes. My name is
God's agenda.
orúkọ mi ni Abiodun Oni. We're brothers in Bashegun also. Now, let me show you what I'm sorry. The thing that is lacking is leadership.
Yes.
Ní olórí tí gbogbo ọmọ Yoruba don't answer for. I want to ask us if Chief Awolowo was alive, are we going to have this problem? Because I believe that Tabani Olorika, very soon, all this argument and discussion is irrelevant because it becomes a uniting force. And it says, this is what Yoruba people are doing. And we close our border and everybody goes home. I believe that is where we need to start from. Leadership. Yes.
Alagoni, let me please be focused. Let me put the question.
Yes.
Do we legally, not you, do we legally need a leader?
Of
Professor.
Course.
No, I'm not talking to you.
Sorry.
You are not to answer the question. Please. Sorry. No. Professor, do we legally need a leader?
I think at this stage, what we need is to set up a committee.
Good.
And that committee will deal with that.
Thank you.
That committee will deal with that. It's a committee we need now.
Thank you. With greatest respect to God's agenda for Nigeria, I am sick and tired of wherever I get to, Yorubas are asking for leader. We're already leading. As we sit here, we're leaders. When the time comes, in the area, Dr. Oni is already a leader on the issue of petition. Well done. We've already got Alagbodede on referendum. In terms of legal agenda, we've already got someone. Why do we need one person speaking for everybody? It is not achievable.
That is how it works. Why don't you say we don't?
Why don't you say we don't need a president? That is out as well.
No. Why don't you say we don't need a president in the country? Let everybody just rule themselves. I am very
sorry. I'm not going to be arguing with you.
Okay, I'm not arguing. But when you say that we do not need leaders, we need leadership. That's how countries
leadership
and
is different from leader.
Work. Excuse me.
Leadership is different from leader.
Let me go straight on to my next speaker, who is Alao Baba Lao. Alao Baba Lao, please.
Yes, Ekro Lemao. Yes, ma. Ẹ má bínú, ó pẹ́ mi díẹ̀, mo ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ wọlé ni. So mo ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ join ni. Gbogbo nǹkan tẹ́ ẹ ti ń sọ, nǹkan tẹ́mi fẹ́ dábàá, nǹkan tí bàbá tó sọ̀rọ̀ sọ, I need the leadership ni. We may not necessarily need one leader. At least àti ní ẹnìkan tí gbogbo wa náà ń wò lókè, Professor Banji Akintoye. So, but what we need now is we need more of communications. Ilé làwa wà, àdẹ̀mbá àwọn èèyàn kọ̀ọ̀kan sọ̀rọ̀. Àwọn èèyàn ò tí ì mọ nǹkan tá à ń sọ. Ìyẹn nìkan tí mo fẹ́ contribute sí nsìn. Àwọn èèyàn, àwọn people at the grassroots, a lot of them wọ́n àti gbọ́ gbogbo tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ yìí.
May I stop you there? Today is
Yes,
about appraisal, legal appraisal. It's not about awareness.
Okay.
Please look at the topic on the paper you have got. It's about appraisal.
Awareness.
Ààrẹ náà ni
Please, I'm so sorry. I don't go around everywhere. We all have better things to do with our time, you know. Let us go straight on to the next one. Awareness, it will come. To have awareness, Dr. Oni is already got a petition that will create awareness for people to sign. Simple. He's already got referendum. That is good enough to create awareness because people have got to sign them. Now, I had Professor Banji Akintoye on my program with the constitutional force majeure document. It's there. So the mechanism for awareness is already there. I need us to focus on the legality of what we're doing. Now, I'm going to now start going through everybody in the studio. At this point in time, we're running out of time. I definitely will be closing at 5:30. And I don't discourage other people who haven't raised their hands from talking. But let me take just two of those who have raised up their hand. Alagba Akinola, over to you.
Ẹ ṣé mà bí ẹ ṣe kọ́kọ́ sọ ní kínní road map tẹ́ ẹ lá máa wò in terms of strategy pé kì í ṣe leader la fẹ́ leadership àwọn tó lè do the thinking tó fi jẹ́ pé tá bá ti mọ direction tá à ń lọ irú kínní tí mo gbé síwájú yìí tí a bá ti ní direction bí tá à ń lọ tí leadership wà àtẹni tó ń sá eré nù ọ́ àtẹni tó wọ mọ́tò àtẹni tó ń lọ lófurufú in terms of speed nípa bí tactics and strategy tó ń lò as long as tó bá lọ sí the same direction then ta ní àwọn tó ṣe fall back on ta lè bá sọ̀rọ̀ in a strategic meeting tí a bá lè ní I think that would be good because problem tí mo rí nípa leader báyìí ni pé it's a problem in Yoruba land each time tó bá ti fi èèyàn kan ṣe leader ààrẹ apàṣẹ wà náà ń ṣe ó dẹ̀ máa ń fàjà and it's a disease tó jẹ́ pé a ń láti fi wá bá ṣe máa lè attend it's a big problem so in terms of having leadership yes very good but one big leader tó máa sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀dá nǹkan mi is going to be a problem thank you that's my contribution.
Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀. Let me go straight to the audience and see if let me see. I still have one more person, Wale Oni, and that will be the last of those who have raised their hands. Wale Oni, please.
Yeah, thank you, ma. My question is to Professor Salako. Josiah, when you did your submission, I was very surprised when you said that the constitutional force majeure, that it was not appropriate as it has been used. Now, the constitutional force majeure that was led by Professor Akintoye, it was issued to the federal government on the 16th of December last year, giving the federal government a 90-day notice, which expires on the 16th of March, I believe. It was signed, it was backed by the Yorubas, the Igbos, and the Middle Belts. A total of 127 eminent Nigerians or people from those regions signed that constitutional force majeure. Now, Professor, you said that as they have used it, that it is inappropriate or wrong the way they've used it.
Yes.
Because I was thinking that for the very first time, sir, let me just finish, that it is a demand on the federal government that no other group has ever done in this way before. And it gives them a 5-point demand, giving them a 90-day notice, which hopefully they will respond to. And if they don't respond to it, then they are saying, they said they've already informed the United Nations, the US government, the EU, and the UK government, hoping that if the federal government doesn't respond in the 90-day notice, that they will then trigger the next level of that legal process. So what do you think of this? Can anything come out of this?
You see, force majeure as is used, and that is what I've quoted to you. And I'm relying on Black's Law Dictionary, which I have here. I'm sitting in my study, which I have here. Now, we should call it the right name. The right we want to exercise is internal right to self-determination, which no government on earth that is a member of the United Nations can take away from us, can divest us of. So we need to use the proper word. Force majeure, as I said, means an event or effect that can be neither anticipated nor controlled, such as acts of nature, that is tsunami, floods, or hurricane, or acts of people, such as riots, strikes, or wars. That is the most important law dictionary that we have. It is the same dictionary that Chief Awolowo was cited in 2/3 of 19 states in the courts. That's what I'm saying. Let's use the right expression. We have a right under customary international law. You see.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me go straight on. I think we've cleared that. There's nothing wrong with that piece of work. It's just a matter of, I would say, putting it in basic English language so that everybody would understand what it's all about. Let me go straight on to the gathering in the Zoom area. I have got Alabi Bashiru. Any comments, please? If I invite you to say something and you don't want to, of course you can just say you don't want to say anything.
Hello?
Are you there, Bashiru?
Mo wà mí báyìí ìyá wa kú ètò.
Ṣé ní ta fẹ́ sọ?
For now, no ma.
Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́, ẹ jẹ́ ká tẹ̀síwájú, mo dúpẹ́ lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀. Ẹ jẹ́ ká tẹ̀, mo rí Wálé Awóṣègùn. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́, ṣé ní tẹ́ fẹ́ sọ? Mo rí Àlùkò Olúwafẹ́mi. Anything to say?
No ma, though I joined late, no.
Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́. Ayọ̀lá Ògúnsànyà, anything to contribute? Ọlágbèmí Ọdúnayọ̀, please. Ọlágbèmí Ọdúnayọ̀, please.
When she comes to watch, she will explain herself because most people cannot disappear. This can give 1,000. Go and watch your.
Ọlágbèmí Ọdúnayọ̀, Akẹ́jù Michael. Mrs. Florence, Jerry Tabeba, Auntie Florence.
Not at all, ma'am. Not at all.
Let's proceed again. Elder Dr. Ayorinde Bale Jerry Tabeba. Shamsidin Oladimeji, anything to contribute, please? Okay. Prince Adetayo, anything to say? Prince Adetayo, any contribution from you?
Yeah, my contribution is that the group that are there, especially this group that is on, and the presentation today, which is absolutely critical. Is there any way of timing what is going to happen? Is there any way it can be timed? All this activity that is going on. Because if I use a typical example, restructuring, we take place, it didn't take place. And probably if it has been done 4 years ago, we wouldn't be where we are. And we are in another sphere completely. Is there any way of timing? We know in 3 months, in March,
okay,
federal government might reply. And if they don't, what is the timing? Like in company, for instance, there's a plan. 3 months plan, 1 year plan, 5 years plan, then we know where we are going. So that is just open-ended. That's just my contribution.
So I will take another question. I mean, this is about time scale for achieving the desired result. Councillor Shadieti, any comments, please?
Hello, ma. I mean, I'm sorry. I've been very busy on another meeting. But I listened to. Apologies for coming in late, first of all, and I listened to the contributors in the house. At this point, honestly, I would just want to go with the generality of what's the outcome or whatever people decide in the house before I'll be able to say anything. I'm really sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I've got Galaxy X9 Plus Etisalat. Don't know who that is. Any comment, please? Okay. Galaxy phone. Okay. We haven't got anybody there. Let me go on further. Anybody else? Timori. I've got Ayola Okusoya here, please. Ayola Okusoya. Then I've got Engineer Anthony Ajayi if he wants to contribute. Mr. Okusoya.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Yes, we can.
So do you want me to talk now or Mr. Okusoya is talking?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Right. Gbogbo nǹkan tí àwọn tó ti sọ̀rọ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀, they've said it well. What you saw, tí a fẹ́. My question now is, we now have a working document, which is 1, petition, and 2, referendum. So how do we achieve this? How do we set up the working committee to drive this through? I thank God for the legal professor for his wisdom on this. So, the one last question or one last comment I would like to say is looking for a leader at this time, it would be a waste of our time. So if we can set up like a working committee, yeah, and set a time frame, yeah, and I think we'll be able to achieve this in a very short time.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me thank you. The question, we've got time scale, and I think that is very crucial. In terms of the last question, we've got all these options. Let me make it clear. Please let me see who else is actually in the background making noise again. Understand why people will log onto a program from a noisy household. Now, let me say, this program is not an organization. I'm not part of any organization to coordinate anything called a committee. If I so desire in my own right as a bona fide human being, I can progress it. So, and anybody sitting here in this gathering too, if able to, can do exactly what Dr. Oni has done. He sat down and he thought about all the barbaric things that he had seen, and he decided to put pen to paper, and he's got a petition. Now, how do we manage all of this? What I'll be doing is campaigning as hard as I can for people to sign his petition. Now, we've also got the issue of the referendum. The two aspects of that, which is to mobilize people to achieve the objective as stated, including facilitating a bill. That's what the committee, I'm not a member of the referendum committee. If that is what they decide, I'm going to be campaigning hard, encouraging people to follow them. The constitutional force majeure, or the one that someone said is led by Professor Banji Akitoye, I'm already doing that. I'll continue to do so. As far as the constitution, as far as the petition is concerned, and the legality that we are seeking to get it onto a faster footsteps, I will be holding on to Professor Salako to see how this can be done. That's me as Erelutuwashe. Now, anybody who is representing an organization here, the organization can do the same. If you belong to, for instance, Odua Youth Arise, after this program, make contact with me. What I'm doing, I'll also link you in. We all have the responsibility to behave in a manner to unlock the door for what we want. If there's a need for a committee, anybody outside of, anybody within this arena today or out there listening to me who wants to do such, let me know, see what can be done. But I want to make it clear that this is not a gathering of an organization that is going to be forming a committee because it's an organization. I've said it many times. If I don't mean share, or shall I mean share, now, let me stop there and go straight on to say we're coming to the end of this program, and I'm going to be inviting the three keynote speakers to bring forth to our attention matters they couldn't bring to our attention because of time restrictions. But I beg you, I don't want to hear about Czechoslovakia. I don't want to hear about Scotland. I want to hear about Yoruba land and the contraption and how we get ourselves out of the contraption. Or we remain within it in a way that we can have freedom. I want to call on Engineer Anthony Ajay if he has anything to say, and I'm going to ask if anybody is in the gathering who seeks to still share thoughts, please be free to either send words to the chat or draw my attention to your desire to do so. Engineer Anthony Ajayi, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, thank you, Erilu. I think this meeting has gone really well. Like I said earlier on, even though you your body language doesn't seem to support what I said, which is how do we set up a working committee, yeah, to drive this through? But if we don't have people working on this, yeah, it will just go like that, right? We've set up the agenda. We know what we're working on now. So how do we achieve it?
I'm very grateful, very grateful. I didn't realize you've actually had a slot to say something. Now, you know, with greatest respect for those of us who are, let's say, very experienced in Yoruba affairs, we don't suddenly jump to, we want to set up a committee because we know what it means. We know what it means very well. The idea of a committee is welcomed. And I've already said, anybody who so wish to set up a committee, I may get off this program as a Relutuwashe, and I will set up the committee. I put out the notice with my own criteria for becoming involved. And I mean it, because please forgive me, those who have seen many Yoruba organizations, what takes away your energy is having people who are ego-driven joining committees, ego-driven. And with greatest respect to you, that ego you cannot work with. And most people know me. Before you call Jack Robinson, they are talking about they want to collect money because they want to do this. I've been in politics for a long time, 36 years. We don't talk about money, we talk about ideas. And the next thing you are going to be hearing is what I've heard here today. We want a leader, we want a leader, we want a leader. And then when you get the leader, the person will become the head of state of the Federal Republic of the world and will be throwing himself around left, right, and center, here and there, with no reference to anybody. Which was why when Abdul Salam was negotiating with representative of organization that was pretty high profile, and a draft constitution was given to them. With greatest respect, was there fall back on people to make that decision? Call a Yoruba a president of an organization, they will think they are supposed to be taking decisions on behalf of everybody. They won't call no meeting. Make them a chairman, they'll be throwing themselves around and think they've got to think for the rest of us. And that is why I'm always cautious when we are talking about Yoruba organizations and how to get things done. A president of an organization, in my own experience, you are supposed to talk to people before you make decisions. You don't turn around and say you are the head of state because you happen to be the retired general manager of God knows what. That's where we have problems. So, and that is why Alagba Engineer Ajayi, I have no objection to the idea of forming a committee. Trust me as I come out of this program, but I will put down the criteria I can work with. Anybody can set up 1,000, because I don't want to get into the same old mode. They will have one organization because before it's 1 year old, they are fighting over leadership. They are fighting over allegations of money. They are fighting over I am this, I'm that. And it becomes enmity. Let me say, Ifa says, Kamura, Omanso, Iwa langwa Iwa. You know, Iwa ni gbogbo nǹkan Yorùbá ti sọnù. Àníwà. Inú ìwà wa láti sọ gbogbo rẹ̀ wa nù. Àníwà. Ká lọ wá wà tuntun. Ìwà tuntun ká farabalẹ̀. Whether you are, sorry, Alàgbà Ajayi, whether you are an engineer, you are a professor, whoever you are, put it away and let's go to intelligence to run our life. That is what leads to people imposing themselves on others. Whether you are Jawe Jegbo, I want to respect you. I'll go to meetings, Ntimosoy, go to meetings of other communities. You won't hear them throwing themselves around with their academic qualification, disturbing the world. So let's begin to talk straight to ourselves. That is why we are not making progress. And that is why the issue of let's set up a committee and then we start coming around. They'll say, have you chosen man? Have you, bẹ́ẹ̀ni mo sọ tó ṣe ọba mú ẹ̀mí nípìn ẹ̀ ẹ jẹ́ ká bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ṣe bó ṣe yẹ ká ṣe kó lè rí bó ṣe yẹ kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀ ni mo sọ bó bá dẹ̀ ṣaláṣọ funfun náà lọ bèrè lórí òkè ẹni tí ò bá pè mí ò ní pè é nítorí mi ò fẹ́ wàhálà fẹ́mi ara mi mo ti ṣe ẹnu ilé ayé mi láti máa sinmi ni mo wà. Alàgbà Ọdẹ́dèyí, let me go straight to you. Let me invite you to please round up. Is there anything else that is sọ tẹ́fẹ́ sọ fún wa?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni mà, ẹ ṣé gan mà, mo dẹ̀ dúpẹ́ fún ọ̀rọ̀ ìṣítí tí ẹ sọ fún wa nísìn. Nǹkan tí mo máa mú jáde ni ọ̀rọ̀ timing àti ọ̀rọ̀ oníkọ̀mítì yẹn. A ní lórí gbogbo nǹkan tẹ́ ti sọ yẹn tẹ́ ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ sọ tán nísìn, ó wà lára nǹkan tá a ṣe dá kọ̀mítì yẹn sílẹ̀. A pè ní Yorùbá Referendum Committee. Nǹkan tá à ń ṣe ń bẹ̀ ni báwo ni a ṣe máa mú ọ̀rọ̀ referendum yẹn kó di nǹkan tí ó máa gba ilẹ̀ gbogbo Yorùbá tí a dẹ̀ lè ṣe nǹkan lé lórí. Ìyẹn wá tún dá lórí ọ̀rọ̀ timing. A dẹ̀ ti wòye pé òkè bí gbogbo nǹkan ṣe ń lọ ní ìsìn tó bá dọ̀la tán bá ní irú òbò 2023 tán fẹ́ sọ yẹn tán bá ní bòyá àwọn èèyàn á tún jáde wọn á lọ máa dìbò gbogbo àtún di yànmọ̀yànmọ̀. So a ní medium term and long term plan àti gbé sílẹ̀. One of the medium term ni pé before 2023 a fẹ́ kí referendum yẹn ṣẹlẹ̀ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Oríṣiríṣi ọ̀nà ló dẹ̀ wà tá a lè lò tá a lè mú kó ṣẹlẹ̀. Number 2, ká ní for whatever reason kò wá ṣẹlẹ̀ ní 2023 tán bá fẹ́ dìbò yẹn a fẹ́ kó jẹ́ pé ọ̀rọ̀ referendum yẹn nìkan ni àwọn Yorùbá máa dúró lé lórí ìbò yẹn. Anybody tó bá lóun fẹ́ dìbò, even tó bá jẹ́ Igbo lóun fẹ́ ṣe president tó bá wá sílẹ̀ Yorùbá referendum yẹn ni ó máa dúró lé lórí. Ká má tí sọ pé ẹni Yorùbá tó bá lóun fẹ́ di president. So a ní ṣe short term àti medium term náà gbogbo ẹ̀ between now and 2023 à ń láti ó dẹ̀ possible fún wa ká ṣe tá a bá sowọ́pọ̀. A dẹ̀ like we said tẹ́lẹ̀ bill yẹn ti wà ńlẹ̀ tó jẹ́ pé kì í ṣe pé a ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ sáré káàkiri, gbogbo ẹ̀ ti wà ńlẹ̀. So tá a bá mú ṣe tá a bá committee yẹn wà ńlẹ̀ ẹni tó bá dẹ̀ fẹ́ tó bá fẹ́ join or tó bá ní contribution tó bá fẹ́ ṣe wọ́n lè kàn sí wa either through yín àbí ká fún wọn ní email address wa. A máa ń gbé bulletin kan jáde every every 2 weeks láti sọ ìdí àbájọ nǹkan tá a ṣe láti ṣe àlàyé nǹkan tá a rò àti bí ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn ṣe ṣe. A dẹ̀ tún máa ń ṣe oríṣiríṣi rédíò radio programs àti gbogbo ẹ̀ tá a fún wa láyé àwọn èèyàn wa sọ láti lè mobilize láti lè ṣe nǹkan tá a fẹ́ ṣe.
Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ púpọ̀. It's very inú mi dùn pé ẹ béèrè ẹ sọ̀rọ̀ 2023. I have somebody who just sent a question. A comrade, ẹ jẹ́ n wo. The comrade, the question here ni pé between Yoruba self-determination and agitation for a Yoruba presidency, which is the way forward? I repeat, between Yoruba self-determination and agitation for Yoruba presidency, which is the way forward? Ntombe ni pé instead tá à ń wá self-determination, kí ló dé tá kúkú gbìyànjú ká bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí pariwo pa fẹ́ di president of Nigeria? So which is the preferred way forward?
Question yẹn kì í ṣe ìmọ̀ gbà ṣe sọ Yorùbá, ṣùgbọ́n tó wà bẹ́ẹ̀ ni pé kì í ṣe choice nínú méjèèjì. Mo sọ ńgbà tá a bẹ̀rẹ̀ yẹn, a ti ní Yorùbá president rí kò gbé wa, a ti ní tí ò ṣe Yorùbá kò gbé wa, sọ̀rọ̀ presidency kọ́ ni issue. At the same time, a lè sọ pé káwọn èèyàn wa má bá wọn díje nínú ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn, ká sọ pé ẹni tó ra fẹ́ lọ o, ẹni Yorùbá tó bá lóun fẹ́ ṣe kò ní bá ṣe, ìyẹn kọ́ ni issue. Issue tó wà ń bẹ̀ ni pé o fẹ́ ṣe president o fẹ́ ṣe president o, ọ̀rọ̀ whatever tá a bá pè, self-determination o, autonomy o, àbí kìíní kan yẹn o, especially lórí ọ̀rọ̀ referendum yẹn, à ń láti ṣe nílẹ̀ wa. So ìwọ Yorùbá tó bá ló fẹ́ ṣe president, ó ń láti fọwọ́ sí ọ̀rọ̀ referendum yẹn. Ìwọ Yorùbá tó bá ló fẹ́ run fún any office, ó ń láti fọwọ́ sí ìyẹn. Tá a bá ṣe kó tó dìgbà yẹn ni mò ń sọ yìí o. Tó bá jẹ́ pé ó dìgbà yẹn ó di kíní pé the only thing táwa ń fẹ́, táwa ọmọ Yorùbá ń fẹ́ ni bá a ṣe máa lè bá a ṣe sọ pé ká ní a fẹ́ exercise right yẹn láti gbé ìgbé ayé bá a ṣe fẹ́, bá a ṣe fẹ́ lo èdè wa, bá a ṣe fẹ́ lo àṣà wa, bá a ṣe fẹ́ lo gbogbo ẹ̀ fún ìlọsíwájú àwọn ọmọ èèyàn wa. So ọ̀rọ̀ wà ńlẹ̀ fún ẹni tó bá fẹ́ ṣe 2023 ni ṣé o fara mọ́ referendum yìí àbí o fara mọ́? Ẹ jẹ́ kó sọ tẹnu ẹ̀, kó wá máa fún wa lálàyé bóun ò ṣe fara mọ́ o àbí bóun ṣe fẹ́ fara mọ́. Ibi tí gbogbo ẹ̀ ti máa di kí n sọ ọ̀rọ̀ tó wà ńlẹ̀ nìyẹn, kò í ṣe choice.
Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́. Let me come to Professor before I come back to Dr. Oni. Professor, there's this horrific problem we are having. Pẹ̀lú àwọn Fúlàní yìí. Now, in tí evidence wà tó dẹ̀ tí n bá ní evidence torí pé mo ná kọ́bọ̀kọ́bọ̀ mi láti fi àwọn èèyàn sí on ground ní tí mi ò dẹ̀ gba paper tí wọ́n fi mí sórí fídíò tí mo rí ẹni tí, let me make that clear. Area yìí, one of the two areas tí mo choose láti ná kọ́bọ̀kọ́bọ̀ mi ní. Mo dẹ̀ rí pé àwọn Fúlàní pọ̀pàrẹ́ tó ń fẹ́ dẹran, àwọn àgbàlagbà wọn ò fẹ́ dẹran, wọn ò fẹ́ dẹran mọ́, àwọn ló ń dẹran. Àwọn ọmọ tó ń dẹran wọn ò fẹ́ dẹran mọ́, wọn fẹ́ máa lọ kàwé. Wọ́n dẹ̀ lọ mú àwọn kan wá táwọn náà ń gbà síṣẹ́. Mi ò kánú ìwé, Ọlọ́run ti dá fídíò. Mi kánú ìwé. Wọ́n bá ṣe ti ilẹ̀ ló máa gbé. Wọ́n dẹ̀ gbé wá, mo rí báyìí. Wọ́n ní passport tó bí wọlú dà, mo dẹ̀ ń wo passport yẹn báyìí. Kódà kò gbà Hausa, kò dẹ̀ gbọ́ Fúlàní, wọ́n gbà síṣẹ́ ni. The first question for me ni pé this person kò ṣe Nigerian citizen. Ó dẹ̀ mú passport wọlú, wọ́n dẹ̀ gbà síṣẹ́. Now, if I use that as the point for my question, it appears people are moving in on us from outside of Nigeria legally. What should be done to protect our borders?
Well, that is a question for whoever is responsible for the Home Department. Because according to any of the constitutions, there are two ways of becoming a Nigerian. And the two ways are: one, Jew solely, whether you are born on the soil, or Jew sanguinis, whether your parents or grandparents are Nigerians. So we can still find some people in the former Southern Cameroon, Northern Cameroon, who are still Nigerians today because of those provisions of the Constitution. So site agbodo wo niyen nítorí Southern Cameroon, Northern Cameroon previously were part of Nigeria, at least before independence, until they joined Cameroon. So some of these people under the Constitution, either under jus sanguinis or jus soli, will still be Nigerians.
Okay. She Professor, arising from that same area, I want to ask you, you may or may not be able to offer me comprehensive answer, but the issue of occupying the land of our ancestors by those who are not of the biological connection to the ancestors. How does that fit in? Now, we know pé àwọn kan gbé wọn sórí ẹ̀, àwọn kan rẹ̀ǹtì ẹ̀ fún wọn, àwọn kan lease ẹ̀ fún wọn. If really, as far as Nigeria is concerned now, do we as Yoruba people legally have a right to say, into ṣe ń pẹ̀ yẹn ti tó kẹ́rù ẹ̀ máa lọ́ọ̀lù ẹ̀?
I think what happened is that, well, a particular group or particular government officials acquiesced, I'm picking my word very well, acquiesced in what went on. Not that they accepted it, they acquiesced. There are three elements of acquiescence. You know that, well, something wrong is being done. You have the right to remedy that, but you abstained from doing that. So we can say that, well, they acquiesced in it, and they are likely to have a raft of reasons for acquiescing in it. Or either probably they invited them to start with, not that they just acquiesced in it. They invited them. After all, Abacha came from Chad. The same Sani Abacha came from Chad. He was not originally a Nigerian. I didn't know how he became a Nigerian, but he came from Chad. So that has been happening a long time in Nigeria.
Professor, another problem Tani, àwọn èèyàn wa wọ́n á mú gbogbo ilẹ̀ wọn acres wọn ò ní fẹ́ǹsì ẹ̀mí nìkan lọ fẹ́ǹsì ẹ̀. Àwọn ẹran yìí wọ́n ló rìn lórí ibẹ̀ yẹn, àwọn èèyàn wa máa bá wọn jà wọ́n ní kẹran máa rìn lórí ilẹ̀ àwọn. Àwọn kan ní by force wọ́n fi ń kó àwọn ẹran lọ ọbẹ̀. Legally, is there anything téèyàn lè ṣe? Èmi ò believe ní pé kán máa pa àwọn ẹran màálù. I don't believe in it. Mi ì dẹ̀ believe pé kán pa ẹni tó ń ní màálù. Kí la lè ṣe legally tí lọ aláwà tí a máa fi sọ fún èèyàn pé má wá sórí àdúgbò yìí mọ́?
We still have, in single inverted commas, a federal system.
Okay.
And the states within certain jurisdictions have the right to legislate on certain issues. And I'm sure that is one of the issues they can legislate on. So each state can actually prevent them from coming there by legislating.
Okay, my question, which hasn't been addressed, which is one of the list here, UNPO. Yoruba is now a registered member of UNPO. I wonder if you can educate us slightly as to where that will lead us to.
Well, legally, it's just like the Palestinians. In the world's case, the International Court of Justice recognized the Palestinians as a people. So there is a list of peoples for the purpose of international law and for the purpose of the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous Peoples' Rights, 2007. So that way, they have rights under the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous Peoples' Rights, 2007. They are recognized as peoples. Either to, before the case on the war in Palestine, they didn't recognize them as peoples. So they are recognized now as people. And that United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Peoples Rights 2007, there are provisions that they can invoke. Yes.
Before I do my thanking of all of you, let me go straight to Dr. Oni. I'm quite conscious that I haven't invited Dr. Debo Lunge to say anything. I wonder if there's anything he wants to say before I go on to his colleague. Dr. Debo Lunge, anything you want to say? You may need to unmute yourself. Dr. Lunge, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Very much, nothing at all. Eshe, thank you.
Thank you. Over to Dr. Shalauni now.
First of all, I need to thank you for this invitation. Thank you very much indeed. And I also want to thank everybody that has taken the time to listen. The only pleading that I have is really for signatures. What I can promise you is that if I get enough signatures, I will do something with it. You know, I don't do things unless I'm determined. I do not. We don't, unless we are determined to do something, we don't do it. So if I get enough signatures, I can tell you, I will do something, and I will do so at my own expense. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now I want to bring in Frank Bello. Frank Bello, Liberty Communications. You've been watching us. Let me invite you. I have deliberately left you, but I've almost forgotten you. Thank you very much. Somebody prodded me. Engineer Jaishe Mudupe. Oh yeah, so.
Yeah, let me have a mute myself. Thank you very much, Iridu. You've cracked it again for the third time running in 2021. Thank you. I think based on some of my podcasts, we've managed to unravel, we're beginning to unravel the this code 369. That is the secret code that is secretly vibrating across the nooks and crannies of Nigeria. And when you look at it, it all started this way. Right inside our national flag before independence, there was that crest, the seal of Solomon or the Star of David. And in between that, you will see those three symbols. And they are very symbolic. The problem of Nigeria was even minted in the Federation of Nigeria in 1959. So that was the beginning of our problem. And that problem, without any shadow of doubt, has taken us through three different cycles of 60 years of misery in a country that is located on the 9 geographical coordinates of the world. And in here, you can clearly see the 20 years of mystery, and 9 is very, very significant because 9, Obasanjo handed over power to Shagari in 1979. In 1999, 9 again, Obasanjo came back to power. 2019 completed the 60 years of that mystery. And I think not until when we begin to crack that code to see what went wrong. I'm afraid we've still got the same problem within Yoruba land because, like I always say, we need one formidable leader, a leader that should be able to speak to the rest of the world. Thank you, Barrister. Your presentation was superb. I can't fault it. Dr. Oni, thank you very much as well. Thank you, everyone. This has been an intellectual argument, and I would love to see more of this, Erilu. Thank you for putting this up, and I'm glad to be associated with such programs. Thank you. I'll hand over back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frank Bello of Liberty Communications. Let me also thank you, because today is a very special day for you.
That's right.
Your daughter's birthday. If she were here, I would start a sing song, but our best wishes to her. I hope she has a very happy birthday, and may it be the beginning of better things in her life.
Thank you.
Before we go, let's remind ourselves of the key things that seems to have come out of this program. Number one, nobody should be telling us anymore that unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. No. Rubbish, we should be telling them. 2, we have a right under the customary clause of international law to say we no longer wish to have any relationship with whatever is known as Nigeria. 3, of course, petition promises to be the most effective route. That's not because it has come from Dr. Shalauni, generally, because the petitions can be put in different vehicles. Apart from that, a good first step of raising awareness of what we want. And it's not awareness that we know. Put your pen to paper, sign. Sign. So if time go to somebody, maybe because of my 36 years in British politics, we don't go to the door to knock door. I don't say, may I count on your support to vote for me? You tell me you're going to vote for me and I mark you down. So on the day of election, if I don't see you at the polling station, I will invite you to please come and vote. That's the way to raise awareness that first I go and raise awareness that I shall be your candidate and I shall tell you what I intend to do for you, and you shall commit yourself to voting for me. And apart from that, on the day, I will remind you that you need to vote for me. That's how I won elections 4 times. Now, let us go forward and say referendum. Yes, of course. 2 aspects of referendum. We need it. And although I say I don't want to hear anything about Scotland, I don't want to hear anything about England, of course, reference point. lessons. If only we retained Westminster parliamentary system of government, maybe we won't be in this mess. But we're already where we are. I shall be supporting in every way possible Dr. Shola Oni with his petition. I shall be encouraging others to support him wherever they are in the world. I shall be supporting the coordinator for the referendum, Yoruba referendum committee, in the person of Alagba Odedi. I have taken note that we also need to ensure that the petition that seems to be the preferred option is got the legal backing to ensure that we can address the item raised by Prince Aditayo. Time scale. Time is money. When I first arrived, I arrived in England at the age of 17. And I remember my dad used to say, time is money. Time is money. He arrived there soon after the Baba Wanko. So let's move on by saying that time is money. We don't want to, I want every one of us to witness a rediscovered Yoruba nation. Some argue that we've never had a Yoruba nation. There are other aspects of what we're talking about Yoruba nation, whether we will be able to pull the northern Yoruba side with Kwara. Will we be able to pull Kwara in? Will we be able to pull Kogi in? Will we be able to? These are items for future dates. But I also welcome wholeheartedly with joy the idea of setting up a committee. But as I've already said it, anybody involving with me, I will go to Ifa, I will go to Osha. Trust me. So, anybody who wants to join the committee, you may please contact me. And I regret to say, as I've said, ground rules have to be, don't come to a committee asking for us to start collecting money because you got some idea of spending. I'm not interested. I just want the idea of, we want a committee, we set up a committee and we think about what needs to be done. I don't want to hear money around me. So let's move on by saying it's a much cherished privilege that we've got somebody amongst us who is from Afenifere, UK. And why are we worrying? Whether we like it or not, before any organization has ever had any foothold in the Yoruba world, we've had the legacy of Obafemi Awolowo, known as Afenifere. Whether we like it or not, it's still there. As far as constitutional force majeure is concerned, of Ilana Modudua, headed by Professor Banji Akitoye, of course, I will push people in that direction. We will support Ilana Modudua. We all agree that at this point in time, we need to achieve collaboration. And I think the committee we needs to involve different people leading different aspects of the journey to freedom. It's not one where everybody's going to go under any organization to say, this is a leader. No. If there's going to be a need for leadership, which is necessary, we have no option. But if there's going to be what you call a leader, we will have a clear agreement. You step out of it, we sack you. You don't want anybody to come and load themselves over us. No, we tell you what to do. You don't want to take our instruction, don't take the leadership. Because far too often Yoruba leaders don't want to be told anything. They think they are the best thing since ice cream. No, any Yoruba leader, we will say to him or her, before you go and talk to anybody, we have a meeting and we all sign to say, this is what you shall say. You don't care who you are. You can be the head, you can be Trump or Biden, we don't care. You could have hundreds of professorships, we don't care. Carpenter will tell you what to do and you should do it. That's what we need in Yoruba land. On that note, Olodumare o ṣeun, Akoda o ṣé, Aṣẹ̀dá o ṣé, Igunmẹ́rin ayé o ṣé. Those of you out there watching me, thank you very much for joining me as usual. I always say if by chance some things I haven't said and you are clear about, there will be a summarized version. People ask me for clips, of course, not a problem, but I always believe it's easier to spend 5 minutes reading an A4 size of key decisions than sitting around watching 3 hours of video clip. But if you want to watch it, no problem. I want to thank all of those of you who have made contributions to today. Without you, it wouldn't have been a success. I thank you very much. Indeed, I want to start by thanking again Dr. Shola Onyeshe. Mo dúpẹ́ púpọ̀. Inú mi dùn láti pàdé yín. I want to thank also Dr. Debo Longe. Ṣé mo dúpẹ́ púpọ̀ jù. Ilẹ̀ Oòduà amóore o. Alàgbà Fẹ́mi Ọdẹ́dèyí, Johnny èmi àti ń ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ bẹ̀rẹ̀ ní torí I love this idea of making the politicians do the job that they are paid to do. Now, I thank you very much for coming here today. I'm sure if there's a need for follow-up, I'll only be too delighted to facilitate that. And finally, Oni Egunla Lungbe Lunkeyin Gbale, Professor, ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ púpọ̀. Àgbàyìn àdálẹ́ kú ojoojúmọ́. I didn't give you much notice, and your workload is always heavy. But one thing I've learned about you is your effective self-management. You do manage yourself well, and therefore anything you do, always perfection on the plate. You always write excellence on what you do and how you put yourself out to people like myself, which is why I'll always drag you. I want you to please stay in touch with us. Help us, because the factory that produced Papa Obafemi Awolowo produced the likes of you. And there are many of you around, not many. I remember saying to Professor, mobile phone in call but no, Professor sticks to the ancient days, which is where we all have to get to, learning to understand what is important and ensuring that what is important, we progress in the right way in order to achieve the desired result. I know that by the powers of Olodumare and the dedication of many of you, Oduduwa Republic has already arrived. So it shall be for Ile Ife, a covenant, just as it was that of Abraham, likewise Oduduwa, that Ile Ife, ó máa fẹ́ ní, but kò ní fẹ́ tán káwa ọmọ ọbẹ̀ káwa dẹrú torí pé ọmọ aládé ni wá, àkìṣe ọmọ ẹrú. Thank you very much. And I want to say, today, the 17th of January 2021, we have found ourselves where we need to be in order for us to begin to fast track our desire for self-determination. Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ púpọ̀. On that note, I want to say to every one of you, thank you for coming. It's been a wonderful session. Thank you once again. And I wish you a safe journey back to your domains, wherever they are. Akunowo, the money you have spent, Afuno, Yoribe Yushede, I am Erilu Tuwashe, and we come to the end of Agba Oniton Nile Oodua Odudigba. ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ púpọ̀. Bye-bye. Ẹ ṣeun o. Thank you. Professor. Ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́. Liberty, ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ o. Auntie Florence, ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ o.
Thank you very much.
I don't want to shut the system down on you, but I'm just about to do so. So, good night, everybody. Please, ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́ o. Thank you. Thank you very much.